Harris on the right. Flyers go with Kelly and Flett at the wings and Crisp at center with Ashby and Dupont back at action. Defensively, Park and Ralph. Again, the referee, Brian Lewis. Matt Pavlich, Ron Finn, the linesman. For the first period, let's go Flyers and let's go Don Earl.
Thank you, Gene Hart, and we're all set to go at center ice. The face-off controlled by New York as Dale Rolfe has it inside of his own zone. Lead pass broken up by Ashby. In turn, broken up by Rolfe, and here comes Russo. Russo met at the flyer line by Moose Dupont, who breaks up the rush. Park crosses to the near side for Dale Rolfe. Pops it into the far corner to our left. Rebound taken off the boards by Dupont. Kept in by Park. And the play is tied up and whistled dead by referee Brian Lewis. We'll have a face-off outside the Flyers' blue line, offside the call. During every Flyer game, each Flyer that scores a goal receives a free case of tasty cake. +1 for Bethana Home, 2nd Street Pike, Northampton, Pennsylvania. Crisp against Russo. Again, it's New York controlling. Dale Rolfe. Lead pass for Russo. Escapes him. Kelly trying to come out. Can't do it. Kept in by Ted Irvin as he crashes right into Ashby and Kelly. Kelly works it by Rolfe, and here comes Bill Flood on the right wing. Can't reach the puck in time. Offside call Flyers as that puck came off the stick of Flood. Back outside the line. Kelly carried it back in, forcing the offside against the Flyers.
Flyers season ticket holders can begin picking up their tickets for Stanley Cup Finals this weekend. The Flyers will give their season ticket holders 3 days in which to pick up ducats. A total of 13 windows will be open at the Spectrum from 10 a.m. till 5 p.m. on Saturday the 27th, Sunday the 28th, and Monday the 29th. All season ticket holders must pick up and pay for their tickets on those days. We'll have more information for you in the next stoppage of play or so.
Walter Tkachuk against Rick McLeish. New York controlling. They've won all 3 draws thus far. Bill Fairbairn moves it ahead for Tkachuk. He's bumped out the puck by McLeish. Now it's Jimmy Watson out to McLeish on the left side of center ice. Fires at long range, hits the New York backboard. Going in after it is Steve Vickers, tied up by Dornhofer, so now it's picked up by Nielsen. Nielsen to the near side. Trying to move out is Tkachuk. A drive knocked down in front of Jacobin, and here comes Steve Vickers on the left wing through center ice. 3-on-2. Vickers deep on the left wing. A drive up front, clear to the backboards. As again, it's Dornhofer tying up Tkachuk. Nielsen, left point. Through a screen, knocked down in front by Gary Dornhofer, and here come the Flyers. Dornhofer with Jimmy Watson, the trailer, drops it off for McLeish. McLeish closing. Jimmy Watson can't get a shot away, and back come the Rangers. Vickers across to Fairbairn, broken up by Jimmy Watson, back to Vickers, deflected to the backboard by Ed Van Ipp. Lonsbury moves it up too far. Nielsen keeps it in the corner. Lonsbury goes for it in the corner. Van Ipp ahead for McLeish, coming out of his own zone to center ice. McLeish with Dornhofer. Dornhofer can't control the pass, and back come the Rangers. Tkachuk with Vickers. Tkachuk from outside the line, off the stick hand of Perrant. Steve Vickers tied up by Ashby as they both come up with the sticks. They battled for the puck in the corner, tied up with the help of Gary Dornhofer. We've got a face-off to the right of Bernie Perrant in the Flyers zone. And so with 17:59 to go in the first period, there's no score.
Brad Park, the Flyers all-star defenseman, as play is on.
On the face-off, Dale Rolfe puts it in the corner. Barry Ashby battles Stemkowski for it. Stemkowski centering pass. Look out. A shot by Butler is gloved as the shot popped in the air off the Flyers' stick. Right into the glove hand of Bernie Perrant, and he ties it up. Face-off this time will be in the circle to his left.
Pete Stemkowski, who made some fine plays and tried to play aggressive the other night, was the goat on Lonsbury's breakaway goal. Did some good digging there for Butler.
Face-off again. Back to Park. The drive hits the backboard. Comes out to Flett on the right wing. Flett holds. Feeds ahead for Bobby Clark at center. Clark across the line. Holds at the line as Dave Schultz did penetrate. Clark just lobs it in as Clark takes a check in front of the New York bench. Thrown by Brad Park. Rolfe starts the rush from behind his own net. Lead pass intended for Stemkowski. He's bumped by Flett, and here we go. Flett and Stemkowski right down below it.
And somebody grabbed a hold of Schultz right below. He's wailing away. And that's Brad Park. Brad Park took on Dave Schultz. And down goes Park. And it appeared when Park had Schultz back up against the penalty box wall and had the advantage, the crowd's decibels count rose. But then when Park went down under Schultz, the crowd quieted. So Flett and Stemkowski are still off by themselves. And we've got Schultz pounding away at Park with Matt Pavlich trying to hold Schultz off. And Park being tied down on the bottom by linesman Ron Finn. And Schultz is talking at him, and now he's got to cool it right here. because Brian Lewis is right on him, and if Schultz continues to go anymore, he's going to pick up a misconduct. And Dave right now has to cool it. This is where maturity comes into fore. And Brian Lewis has just held up a couple of fingers as if to say, that's it. Veteran Matt Pavlich has a tie hold on Schultz, who's still pointing at Brad Park. And the initial encounter was Flat and Stemkowski, and they've been left by their lonesome to the far side of the pile, as it was Park and Schultz in the main goal. And Park is still looking on as he got up, and that time he was pinned, unfortunately, by linesman Ron Finn, as Schultz got a few extra jabs in there. All of this along the near side, and all of the action that came as first the Rangers were forechecked by Ashby, the puck along the near side, and as it was dug out, and McGregor trying to work out, he skated past Flett, and then coming up the near boards was Stemkowski, really to go into high, went high into Flett, and then Schultz came in and belted Stemkowski, and then quickly Park came over to take on Schultz. And what comes out of all of this, we're not sure as yet, but the penalty is at 2:23, whatever they are. Again, to continue on as it's cooled off with the season ticket information for final playoff tickets. Season ticket holders coming to pick up their tickets Saturday, Sunday, and Monday must present their playoff identification card in addition to some other form of personal identification. Fans wishing to have someone else pick up their tickets must give that person their playoff identification card as well as a letter identifying the person and giving a phone number where the owner of the tickets may be reached for verification. Let's pick up the penalty. Dave Schultz. He gets 2 for roughing, 2 for charging, and 5 for fighting, I would think. All right, so 3 penalties for Schultz. Park gets 5 for fighting. Well, Brian Lewis is here, so the Rangers right now get a 4-minute power play, and Dave Schultz is up screaming at the penalty box. And now Brian Lewis is coming over again, and he almost gave Schultz a misconduct. Or either he didn't or he did. He went to reach for his hands on his hips, got within about a foot of them, and then did not finish it off. And let's see what the call is going to be if he's going to pick up any more. He got the hand. Schultz picks up a 10-minute misconduct. So Dave Schultz has now finished the first period as he has picked up 19 penalty minutes. And Don just doesn't seem an equity there somehow. Schultz picks up 4 penalties, 2 for roughing, 2 for charging, 5 for fighting, and a 10-minute misconduct. And Brad Park gets 5 for fighting. And Flett and Stemkowski, who precipitated it, get nothing.
Well, I wouldn't touch that line that you threw me, Gene, with a 10-foot pole, strictly because of the very obvious reason that it's a complete inequity. But you've got to wonder out loud if the referees might be trying to atone for past discretions or indiscretions, if you will, involving the Rangers earlier in this series. On the face-off, it's Rick McLeish across the New York line. Bumps into Russo, loses the puck. Dale Rolfe behind his own net. Rangers moving from right to left. Rolfe to center ice. Long, strong strides across the Flyers line. Dumps it into the Flyers corner. Rattel bumped by Dupont. Puck tied up there for a face-off in the circle to the right of Bernie Perron. Flyers will be shorthanded for 4 minutes. And Dave Schultz, as Gene pointed out, is through for the rest of this period. A total of 19 minutes against Schultz in one fell swoop. Rattel against McLeish, near circle to our left. Flyers penalty killing will be severely tested and early. No score here in the first period. McLeish goes down. The puck is beneath him. Now it comes out to Dale Rolfe. Right point. Russo to the Flyer backboard. Gilbert trying to dig it out of the right wing corner to Rattel. Back to Russo. Fakes the shot. Now takes it to Hadfield. Shot stopped by Perron. Ashby trying to tie it up. 2-on-1 is Hadfield and Rattel trying to dig it loose, but it's tied up And again, the face-off in the Flyer zone in the near circle to our left.
Of course, you see Victor Hatfield, the Ranger captain, out the first 2 games of this series, is now back on the left wing on the gag line with Rattel and Gilbert, with Dale Rolfe taking Brad Park's position on the left point, and Park will not be able to become involved in this power play at all as it lasts for 4 minutes. His fighting penalty for 5. 3:17 remaining on the double minor, being served by Bob Kelly and dished out to Dave Schultz along with a fighting and misconduct.
On the face-off, Bobby Clark taps it back to Jimmy Watson. Now Clark gets it to Bill Barber. He finds an opening and sends it the length of the ice. It'll be Dale Rolfe who'll pick it up to the near side of the Ranger net. Takes it behind the net. Forechecking is Clark. Rolfe will start out. Speeds ahead on the right wing to Jean Rattel. Rattel to center. Back to Rolfe. Rolfe fakes the shot. Just dumps a lazy shot into the Flyers corner. Van Imp trying to spin away from Rattel. Now it's behind the Flyer net. Gilbert. Back to Rattel behind the net. Rattel right on the stick of Bill Barber, and he clears at the length of the ice. Schultz's double minors down to 2:38 left out of the 4 minutes he started out with. Bobby Russo starts the play. Feeds up to Rattel. He's upended at center ice. This time Brian Lewis doesn't make the call. Bobby Clark trying to control. Cuts inside of Gilbert. Kicks the puck loose. Still controlling. Banks it off the boards. Goes back and picks up his own carom. Dumps it back into his own zone for Jimmy Watson. And Jimmy Watson fires to center ice off the stick of Rousseau into the New York zone. 2:08 left on the power play. Here comes Rousseau. Fires. Glove save. Perron was off the mark. Perron holds. Tried to clear out himself. Couldn't do it. Kept in by New York. Now it's Hatfield back to the left point. Nielsen can't keep it in, and it's cleared the length of the ice by Terry Chris. Good, strong penalty killing thus far for the Flyers. Down to 1:47 left on the advantage. Dupont wraps it right back in the New York zone. Intercepted by Dornhofer, and he loses to Hatfield. Hatfield behind his own net now circles out of the corner. Up to Rousseau, slowed down. Rousseau on the right wing now to Fairbairn. Fairbairn across the line, dumps it to the right wing corner. Ashby cuts inside of Tkachuk, trying to tie it up. Loose puck, Dupont blasts it down the ice. Giacomin takes the carom and leaves it behind his own net. 1:15 left on the double minor to Dave Schultz. Rod Sealing up to Fairbairn, offside pass against New York, and we have the first stoppage in play in some while, as this has been great up and down action.
The one legitimate shot on goal was a quickie from the left circle against Perron by Vic Hadfield, and the Flyers have already covered 2 minutes and 49 seconds of the double minor, 1:11 remaining, and Kelly is serving that. Of course, Schultz has 5 more for the fighting and 10 for the misconduct. He'll not come back until a minute and a half, minute 37 gone in the second period, which breaks up that line of Clark, Schultz, and Flett.
Face-off just inside the Ranger blue line, controlled by the Flyers. Dupont drops it back to Ashby on their side of the center ice red line. Dornhofer on the near side, back to Dupont. Dupont broken up by Fairbairn. Fairbairn trying to go wide on Dupont, tied up, can't get his pass off. Now it comes to the near corner, picked up by Clark. Clark can't clear the zone. Tkachuk right on the stick of Clark, and he's out to center ice. Not quite. And we've got a penalty coming up, but I think it's against New York.
No, it's going to be a New York penalty for hooking on Clark, and with 14:10 remaining first period, there is no score. Back here at the Garden, Pete Stemkowski picks up 2 minutes for hooking, as first he got Clark with a stick and then got him again down low as Bobby was trying to bring the puck out of the zone, and they'll play 5 aside for 47 seconds, then the Flyers will have the edge.
Face-off controlled inside the Flyer zone. Joe Watson up to Orest Kindrachuk, banks it off the left wing boards all the way to the Flyer backboards. Out of his net is Giacomin. Drops it off for Bruce McGregor. McGregor checked tightly by Selesky. Loose puck in the New York zone. Now it's ahead for Rattel. Rattel checked tightly by Kindrachuk. Here comes McGregor. His shot deflected wide by Joe Watson. Tapped back to the corner by Perron. Rattel back to Sealing. Sealing from the right point. Glove save and a good one by Perron. And now we've got Joe Watson and Bruce McGregor going at it right in the Flyer crease.
Well, Joe Watson's doing what defensemen will. McGregor is not known as an overtly aggressive player. That time took a few whacks at Perron, who had made the save. That pushed him into the goalpost, and then Rod Sealing has come in, and he and Selesky are only separated by Matt Pavlich in the crossbar of the Flyers' goal. And Selesky now has to cool as I would think he's got to read that Brian Lewis is not going to take any nonsense, and he's looking right at Zaleski now, who's the instigator, and Sealing trying to draw him, and both of them are going off. But I would think at this time, Don, maybe an advantage for the Flyers, as they will play 3 aside for 16 seconds, and then Kelly will be out of the box for the Flyers, and the Rangers then will have to play 3 skaters against 4 for approximately 1 minute and 10 seconds. It was a tough shot from the right point as the Flyers saw the Rangers challenging from that on a drive on Perrant. And the shot came, and Perrant, although there is an attempt by player in front to screen, Perrant made the save, and then McGregor took a bump at him, and then McGregor was pushed into the goalpost by Joe Watson. So Zaleski draws 2. As does Rod Sealing. Roughing is the call. And the penalties come at 6:21. All right, so Brian Lewis, who perhaps has been reading the papers today, has called 2, 4, 6, 7 penalties in the game's first 6 minutes. And Don, maybe what people imply, that the team that survives this series may not have any muscle or sinew left for the finals, because they certainly have been going in at hammer and tongs in Game 2 and now early in Game 3.
Well, really, a lot of the penalty minutes called have either been of the misconduct variety. There have been really not as many fights as, frankly, I expected, but there have been a lot of the minor penalties called, as Dave Newell called everything in sight the other night at the Spectrum. Okay, we're back to action. Jimmy Watson will start the rush. He comes to center ice. He's on with Clark and Blade. Clark crosses back to Watson, retreats, picks up his own carom at center ice, rags the puck against the forecheck in McGregor. Now Watson starts inside, feeds deep for Clark. Centering pass is blocked by Dale Ralph. Nielsen can't move out of the zone as the puck skips into the seats, and someone's got a souvenir. That will have a face-off outside the New York line as Jimmy Watson was tabbed as the one who caused the stoppage in play.
I think what they were doing here after Ralph's check, he went down on the puck, and it was a good one in the corner as it went up on the right wing boards coming out. He fell, and Brian Lewis pointed to center ice, and I think Ranger fans thought he was signaling Flyer penalty.
It's going to be McGregor against Bobby Clark at center ice. Loose puck picked up by McLeish, who's now on. Bladen to Clark inside the zone. Here comes McLeish. He's inside. He's tripped up. Scores! McLeish scores for Tkachak. It was going to be a New York penalty, but that washes it out the Flyers. Takes a 1-0 lead.
That's a power play goal, and it comes on the penalty to Pete Stepkowski. He comes out, and there it was, the play behind the Ranger defense, and McLeish, who was quick, was able to poke it past and break past Nielsen. And despite the fact that he was tripped by McGregor, an incredible play on one skate, falling down and on his knees, he flipped it past Ed Jackman, and Don, on the second look-see at that goal, what a tremendous effort by Rick McLeish to score his 8th of the playoffs, and he leads all performers in Stanley Cup play. It'll be McLeish and the assist from Bobby Clark at 6:57, and the Flyers lead 1-0.
And for the Flyers, their 9th power play goal overall in Stanley Cup play this year. New York controls. Nielsen at center ice off the stick of Tkachuk. It rides right in on Perrant, makes the routine save, feeds off to Flood on the right wing and inside of his own line. Lead pass to Crisp at center. Crisp drives from outside, pops high, wide of the net, backhand glove save, Giacomin. Flips it to that far corner for Jim Nielsen. Nielsen checked out the puck by Fleck, kept in by Terry Crisp. Now it's Dale Rolfe. Up to center ice where it's Dupont controlling. Puts it right on the stick of Tkachuk. He leaves it for Rolfe. Rolfe across to Fairman. Fairman trying to get a shot away. Scooped off his stick by Dupont. Crisp to the near corner to our left for Bill Flett. The Cowboy looking for the open man to pass to. Banks it off the backboards to the far corner. Dupont lobs it ahead. Knocked down by Tkachuk. Kept it in the zone. Now it's Dupont. Dupont backing into the corner. Now feeds to the near side for Ashby coming out. Ashby to center. Lobs one in on Giacomin. Again, a backhand glove save. Giacomin drops it off for Ron Harris. Harris will start the rush as we're approaching the midway point of the first period of play. Jimmy Watson jams it right back in again. Flyers playing positional, disciplined hockey thus far. And the Rangers will try to upset that system. Here comes Rattel. Rattel trying to break through the defense. The trailer is Fairman. Comes to the left wing board. Deep in the left wing corner for Rattel. Blocked off behind the net. Tkachak to Jimmy Watson, and here come the Flyers. Moves it ahead to center ice, intended for Barber. Harris dumps it back in. Van Imp will catch it. He's checked tightly by Rattel. Out front, Rattel taken down. Play to the backboard by Jimmy Watson. Ron Harris to drive off the stick of Barber. Now it's Rattel. Feeds deep, but it's intercepted by Kindrachuk. He takes a check from Gilbert. Kindrachuk still controls for the Flyers. Kindrachuk to center ice. Right wing pass, Zaleski. Taps it to the right wing corner, but outside has been called against the Flyers. Again, a good bit of action here at Madison Square Garden.
There was a play that's one of the real assets of Boris Kindrachuk, digging the puck out of his own defensive left wing corner. Rod Gilbert went in and checked him and gave him a good bump. Not only did Kindrachuk retain the puck, but he broke away from Gilbert and let him play up at center ice and sent Zaleski away on the right wing. Kindrachuk just does not give the puck up, and Gilbert is a fine, tough forechecker. Bumped him hard, but didn't take him, not only didn't take him off the puck, but didn't break up the Flyer charge out of their own zone. 10:58 remaining first period. We've had 7 penalties called, and the one to Pete Stemkowski gets McLeish's power play goal, his 8th of the playoffs, and his 4th against the Rangers. The assist, Bobby Clark.
Face-off control by the Rangers. Sealing tried to lead Stemkowski. Hopped over his stick, Ashby. To Bill Flett, a bouncing puck right inside the Ranger line. Kelly tries to bump Stemkowski, but here comes Sealing. Intercepted by Clark. Clark at center ice. Just dumps it into the New York zone. Back for the Rangers. Pete Stemkowski up to Ted Irvin. Irvin checked tightly by Bill Flett. Rangers control. Nielsen puts it right on the stick of Barry Ashby. Right wing pass, Kelly on the off wing. Wrapped up by Jim Nielsen. Here comes Stemkowski, blocked off by Clark. And now it's Bob Kelly. As Nielsen takes a swat at it, goes to the Flyer corner. Controlled there by Ashby behind the Flyer net. Ashby waited. Stemkowski, the forechecker. Kelly on the left wing. Pulls it around one man. A good move by the Hound. Long lead pass. It's going to be icing against the Flyers as Nielsen touches up. Face-off down to our left. And so with 10:05 left in the first period, the score, Flyers 1, New York 0.
Back at the Garden, 10:05 remaining. Flyers, and a magnificent score by Rick McLeish on his knees and then on his stomach, coming in on Jackman after being tripped. Lead it 1-0 as the inscrutable Fred Shiro looks on.
It's going to be Walter Tkachuk against Rick McLeish in the circle to the left of Bernie Parent in the Flyer zone. Tkachuk, Steve Vickers, Bill Fairbairn, the front three for New York. McLeish, Lonsbury, Dornhofer for the Flyers. On the face-off, it comes to the near boards. Picked up by Ross Lonsbury. Lonsbury out to center ice. Looks for the open man. Crosses the red line. Off the stick of Dornhofer. Wide of the New York net. Jackman feeds up to Vickers. Dumps it to center ice. Right on the stick of McLeish. What a series he's having. Dumps it the length of the ice. Dornhofer will be there first, but Jackman touches up. And Dornhofer checks Jackman in turn. Checked by Park. Loose puck out front. A drive by Joe Watson. Hits the backboard. Lonsbury along the right wing boards. Goes into the corner. Checked first by Dale Rolfe. Loose puck. Dornhofer tries to put it out front, but here comes Steve Vickers. Vickers to center ice. He's got Tkachuk with him. Tkachuk winds up the shot. Close save Perron on a low bullet. He feeds off to McLeish, but we have a whistle stopping play. Apparently, Perron did not drop the puck in time before the whistle blew.
Of course, that's one thing Don and I, from the roof vantage point that we have here, will never be able to ascertain our whistles. And so play continued, and perhaps even the players, with this huge crowd noise, couldn't hear that stoppage of play as Lewis figured that Perron held the puck too long. Tkachuk's shot was low and toward the middle of the net. Perron had it all the way. As Vickers was coming in, Bernie decided to hang on. 9:18 remaining first period, 1-0 Philadelphia.
Rattel, Hadfield, Gilbert rejoined as Hadfield comes off his ankle injury. The cast just removed. Van Imp pops it ahead for Barber. Can't move it out of the zone, and someone raised their stick above the shoulder level. And we're going to have a face-off outside the Flyer blue line.
Appeared to be Rod Sealing on that after it tipped off a legal stick off the ice from Billy Barber.
Chicago and Boston at Chicago just getting underway, so it'll be a while yet before we'll have anything to report on that semifinal round game. Puck slid behind the Flyer net. Perron leaves it for Jimmy Watson. He slides it back to Bill Barber in the left wing. Barber can't move it out of his own zone. Drops it back to Watson once more. The rookie defenseman ahead for Don Zaleski at center. Oh, Barber almost getting a breakaway pass from Selesky. Puck loose behind the New York net. Finally touched up, and I believe it's going to be icing called against the Flyers.
Giant battle of little men comes on the 29th. Monday night fights at the Spectrum. North American junior lightweight champ Sammy Goss have treaded against South Philly's unbeaten sensational Tyrone Everett in a 12-round match for the North American junior lightweight championship. Goss has a great string going for him, 39-3 with 19 knockouts. Everett 19-0 with 11 KOs. Tickets at $5, $10, and $10. $5, $7, and $10 on sale now at the Spectrum.
Tkachak against Rattel, and of course this being at Madison Square Garden, Coach Emile Francis has the last say on who he's going to put against whom as far as line matchups are concerned. Tkachak controls in his own zone. On the left wing, boys, tries to move it up the boards for Barber, but it's deflected into the Flyer bench. So we'll come back to the circle to the left of Perron, the top of the far circle to our left.
You can see Tkachuk's style of play, and it's a good one, is if he can bring that puck out himself, he'll try to, because every time you make one less pass, there's one less chance of giving it away or a deflection or an interception. That time as he tried to play it up ice out of the ring.
Tkachuk against Rattel. Flyers control. Ed Van Imp to the near side. Backhander ahead for Selesky. He's challenged by Hadfield. Now Hadfield goes back into his own zone for it. Feeds up the boards. Kept in by Van Imp. He's closing the drive. Knocked down by Nielsen. Van Imp puts it for Barber against the backboard. Barber in that left wing corner. Coming out of the corner. Still controlling. Drops it off, but offside will be called against the Flyers as his pass eluded Jimmy Watson just long enough to come outside the line before the rookie defenseman whacked it back in again.
If anyone happened to see the winning goal for Chicago Tuesday night, a shot from the point by White, Pappen just helping it on the way. That's just what Billy Barber attempted to do and was in almost the same position.
Face off this time, controlled by New York. Comes to center ice. Rattel battles Tkachuk. They both go down. Gilbert almost a breakaway, as we have almost breakaways at both ends of the ice. Loose puck picked up by Bill Barber. Barber, lead pass for Tkachuk on the left wing. Gets by him, controlled by Brad Park. Park to the near side for Rolfe. Rolfe leads Rattel. Rattel with Gilbert. He's slowed down by Barber. Loose puck picked up in the slot by Tkachuk. Just dumps it back to the New York zone. Selesky in a foot race with Rolfe. Rolfe will win it. Can't lead Gilbert far enough, and Selesky gets a piece of it. Clark is in there, loses his stick. Back to Dupont. The drive. He scores! Bruce Dupont scores for the Flyers, and a tasty cake. It's 2-0.
And I tell you, Don, an incredible shot, because that was a rolling or bouncing puck, and he caught it full on and screened it past Jacobin, and Moose Dupont gets his fourth playoff goal, and it comes at 12:20, and it's 2-0 Philadelphia. And there again, Don, I would have to say, tremendous effort by Don Selesky, challenging and giving it all out to challenge Ralph, who failed to clear it out. Finally, it got out to the point, and Dupont ripped it home for his second of the playoff series, and it's 2-0 Flyers.
Clark gets one of the assists, and that's Clark's second point of the night, and that's the lone assist awarded on Dupont's goal, and the Flyers take a 2-0 first period lead. The Rangers indeed have their backs against the wall now. Dupont around to Clark on the left wing. Out to center ice comes Crisp on the right wing. Flett, the windup, the drive, stopped by Jacobin, and the derisive cheers start up again here at the Madison Square Garden. Stemkowski crosses to the far side. Tkachuk across to Irvin. Irvin trying to get behind Dupont. Centering pass blocked off by Dupont and Crisp. Great defensive work in the Flyer zone as the puck is tied up against the far boards for a face-off.
Don, I can only say a bit of luck on the Flyer side that time on that bouncing puck and a great shot. 6:59 remaining, first period, 2-0 Flyers. Back here at Madison Square Garden, we've got some turmoil in the stands, and Don, we were advised before the game that there'd be 25% additional security here tonight. Looks like they need some of it right now.
Puck loose in front of Perron, just barely cleared out of harm's way by Jimmy Watson. Up to Bill Flett. Now to Clark at center. Kelly cutting toward the line. Clark bounces one in wide of Jacobin. Jacobin sweeps it to the near corner. Flett digs for it. Can't reach it in time, and here comes Stemkowski. Off the stick of Jimmy Watson, the Flyers regain control. Bob Kelly dumps it back inside the New York zone. Nielsen back to center ice for Stemkowski. Stemkowski trying to get a shot away, still controlling. Backhander in front. Good save. Perron as he hugs the far side post. Loose puck comes out to Nielsen. Across to Sealing. His shot blocked by Kelly, and it comes to center ice, picked up by Flett. To Kelly. Can't control it. will go to the corner, and he's checked by Nielsen and loses his glove in the process. Sweat can't reach his pass, and back comes New York. Puck at center ice. McLeish gets it away from Stemkowski. Back come the Flyers. McLeish cuts around Park along the boards, kicks it into the corner. McLeish wheels away from a Park check. Now it's flat to McLeish. His shot is wide. Crosby back to Ashby. His drive. Glove save, Giacomin. And we've got a face-off coming up to the left of the New York net.
Two tremendous checks thrown by the Rangers, but Don, and the second one to McLeish in the corner. He nevertheless got out and got a shot from a wide angle that Giacomin nevertheless had to make a save on, and it trickled over to the near side and then was set out to the point. The Rangers are battling and they're charging, but the Flyers are picking up the big plays. 5:50 remaining in this first period. 2-0 on goals by McLeish and Dupont.
Tkachuk against Rick McLeish. Face-off. Puck drifts into the corner, in the far corner to our right. Picked up by Brad Park as he comes to center ice. Trying to get around Joe Watson. Throws it in on Perron from long range. He steers it to the far corner for Lonsbury. Steers it behind the net, but who's there but Vickers? Shot! Stopped by Perron off the stick of Bill Fährmann. This time he holds on as the traffic gets a bit too much around the Flyer net.
That's one of the few times you'll see Ross Lonsbury make an error in judgment as he wheeled it from behind the net up on the defensive left side, the Rangers' offensive right wing, and it was picked off, and Vickers got a good shot from a tight angle, but Perron hugged the post on the short side to keep it out. Remains 2-0.
Face-off, a drive, score, Bill Fährmann. And the Rangers are on the scoreboard. A perfect setup play as it was drawn back to Fährmann. And Perron was screened partially just enough so that Fährmann does Goodwood on it, and it beat Perron to the stick side, and it's 2-1 Flyers.
That's the kind you always are afraid of. The quick drawback to the man at the top of the circle, the inside, and he gets the quick draw, and of course the defenseman, one of them will always be in front of the goaltender, and Fairbairn cut that low to the long side, and Perron had no chance on his stick side, so Fairbairn gets his first goal of this set, and in his career playoff it's his 8th, and it will be from Tkachuk, who gets his first point in 9 playoff games, and it comes at 14:28, and it's 2-1, Flyers on top.
And for Fairbairn, his second goal of the 74 playoff series. He got one against Montreal and that one right there. So it's a one-goal hockey game once more as 17,500 Ranger hockey fans leap to their feet. Dornhofer and Park bump. Park dumps it back inside the Flyer zone. Lonsbury returns it to center ice. Park across to Ralph on the near side. Up to Tkachuk. Tkachuk to Vickers. Deep in the left wing corner, but offside is the call by linesman Ron Finn. And, Gene, this is the line that carried the Rangers virtually on their shoulders down the stretch drive.
Indeed, and if Tkachuk can come strong, that just has to make the Rangers. But again, an opportunity goal upon which goaltenders have very little opportunity. That's the one that Harris scored on to win the playoff overtime game against Montreal.
Off the face-off, banked off the Flyer backboard, controlled by Barry Ashby behind his own net. Trying to decide which way is the best way to go. Goes left, Dupont dumps this to center ice, but Rolf has it, and he returns it right back around the Flyer boards. Ashby will start once more. Tkachuk waiting out front. Ashby in no hurry. Around to Dupont, intercepted by Fairbairn. Fairbairn to Tkachuk, back to Clark. The drive, hits the backboard. Vickers has it, tries to center, blocked out by Ashby. Fairbairn tries to center the puck. It caught a piece of Dupont's skate, and it's around to the right wing for Dornhofer. Dornhofer sends it the length of the ice to relieve the pressure. It'll be icing. McLeish touches up. Icing or offside, one of the two, but at any rate, with 4:25 left in the first period, it's 2-1 Flyers.
4:28 remaining, 4:25, first period, 2-1, Philadelphia.
Face-off inside the Flyer zone. Jim Nielsen takes it from Rattel off the draw. He's upended. Down in the corner, the puck is tied up in the Flyers corner down to our left. Rattel, Van Imp, with help from Tkachuk and Don Selesky. This time the face-off will be in the circle instead of the top of the circle as it was on the outside. Kinderchuk against Rattel. Van Imp off the skate of Barber. He can't find the handle, and Gilbert can't keep the puck in the zone. Gets it across to Jim Nielsen at the New York line. He dumps it back inside the zone on the far side. Sealing starts out. Good pass to Hadfield. Can't control it. Just dumped back to center ice by Selesky. Now it's Hadfield to the Flyers' right wing corner. Gilbert and Barber battle. Back to the point. Bouncing puck. Here's Gilbert in front. Hadfield standing right out front and is blocked off by Perron. Barber on the right wing to Selesky. Selesky from long range. Bounces to the far boards, but Barber can't do anything but drop it back to Tkachuk. Now it's Selesky. Selesky gets behind the net. Checked by Jackaman. Barber tries to throw it out front. We've got a penalty coming up as Jackaman has Barber down. I believe it's going to be a New York penalty, and Jackaman should get one of them.
Well, Jackaman did not like being strained off, but we have a penalty, and now again Selesky has to cool it, as the Rangers like to incite some penalties here, and we've had none since early in the game. Actually, we had 2, 4, 6, 8 of them in the first 6.5 minutes, and we've got a penalty, and I believe it was going to be Selesky and maybe Jackaman, and Selesky doesn't understand why, but it was Selesky coming from around behind the net, was checked nicely by Jackaman, but who was out of position, and as Barber went in the corner, he centered, and he had Kindrachuk all alone in front, and had Kindrachuk scored, Jackaman really would have been a goat on that. And then as he tried to get up, he really put a bear hug on Jackaman, and we get a Flyer penalty, Don Selesky, for holding. 2 minutes for holding. Incredible. No penalty, Jackaman.
I'll tell you, the goaltenders in the first 2 series involving the Flyers have gotten away with just about everything except unlicensed mayhem.
Well, of course, if Jackaman didn't get any penalties for his ranting at Ravy session Tuesday night, he didn't do enough there to deserve one. Don't miss April's action, a super issue loaded with stories of Spectrum events, particularly the Flyers and the Stanley Cup, available now at the Spectrum. A year's subscription, only $1 for 12 exciting issues. Mail your subscription and $1 to Action Care of the Spectrum. All right, the Rangers now have a power play. They had a 4-minute power play early in the game when Schultz picked up a double minor, a major for fighting, and a misconduct. He'll not come back till a minute 37 gone in the second period. And the Rangers huffed and puffed, but really couldn't challenge. And then the Flyers got a break. Stemkowski and Sealing in with Selesky. With the Flyers 4 against 3. McLeish on a great breakaway effort on his knees and then on his stomach. Nevertheless, slid one past Jackaman. Dupont scored later from the point, and then Fährberg about 2 minutes later to make this a 2-1 game. And we've had our first display of infantilism here as some debris, an egg or an orange or something has been tossed on the ice, and it appears to be an egg. And we're going to have a little delay here while that's cleaned up. The goals, McLeish from Clark at 6:51, a power play, and then at 12:20, Dupont from Clark, 2-0, 14:28, Fährberg from Tkachuk. There have been 8 penalties, 5 against the Flyers, and only 1 involved in the scoring. That one while Stemkowski was off for hooking Bobby Clark. We're set to go with 3:27 remaining in this period, and it is, make that 9 penalties now, and 6 for the Flyers.
The power play has been, all during the regular season, the big weapon for New York, and it's sputtered in the playoffs thus far. They have 4 to show for their efforts. Puck dumped into the Flyers corner, goes behind the net. Barber with it, winds it around for Clark. Picked up now by Dupont, and he sends it the length of the ice. A rolling puck which will stop before it reaches Jackaman. He steers it behind the New York net for Brad Park. Park starts out. Park to center ice. Tkachuk on the right. Park slowed down at the line. Offside called. New York will have a face-off in neutral ice just outside the Flyer blue line. We're down to 1:24 left on the penalty to Don Selesky. 2:51 left in the first period.
All right, off goes Barber. Off goes Lund. Make that Dupont and Ashby. And we've got Jimmy Watson and Van Impe out there with Lonsbury and Clark. And the fans are unhappy that the Tkachuk line is going off and the gag line coming on. Gilbert, Rattel, Hatfield, Rousseau, and Park, the power play unit.
Hatfield almost got a goal on that last rush prior to the penalty as he was standing in his favorite position right in front of Perron, but couldn't put it by the Flyer goaltender. Puck at center ice picked up by Gilbert on the far wing. Drops it back to Rousseau. Return pass Gilbert on the right wing. Now to Hatfield in the left wing. Across the Flyer blue line. Hatfield into Rattel. He tried to redirect it, but Perron covered his position well, and Clark Clears ahead for Lonsbury. He's checked off the play. Interference should be called, but it's not, as Park cut off Lonsbury as the puck drifted away from both of them. Now it's Hatfield across to Rousseau. Rousseau return pass on the left side. Hatfield as Rousseau cuts for the net. Backhand, great save by Bernie Perrott. Down goes Jimmy Watson. Rangers ganging. Now it's Hatfield trying to come away from the boards. Tied up and broken up by Bobby Clark. Clark around to the far corner for Jimmy Watson. Finds an opening and sends it filling to the ice. Down to 30 seconds left on the penalty to Selesky. Park starts out of his own zone. Poke check by McLeish. Now it's going to be Rousseau. Rousseau to Park to center. Park across the red line. Inside the Flyers blue line. Drops it off for Hatfield. Goes around behind the net. Rattel's there. Rattel check out front. A backhander. Look out. A drive. Just dropped it left hand to Perrott. Dupont winds it around for McLeish. And McLeish gets it back to the Rangers zone. Sharp goaltending by Perrott from in close. New York could not do anything on that power play as the Flyers are back full. McLeish gets it to Dornhofer at center ice. Back to McLeish. Bouncing puck, pinned to the boards by Stemkowski. Dornhofer moves in, and it's tied up directly down below us in neutral ice, and that's where the face-off will take place.
Rattel set up Rousseau once, breaking through the defense. He made a good flick shot, and Perrott came up with the best save of his game. And then a bit later, as the puck zoomed to the far side, it was Gilbert who almost beat Perrott short side. Stemkowski still showing the signs of that fight the other night with Jimmy Watson. 2 stitches over the left eye.
Back to the action. Rangers controlling. Stemkowski off the boards, intended for McGregor. Stemkowski takes his own carom deep in the right wing corner. Centering pass, no one there. Checking off the near boards. Nielsen's drive is wide as we're down to 53 seconds left in the first period. Flett sends McLeish away. McLeish, the lone man in the zone, has to pull up short. Pass intercepted by Stemkowski. Stemmer checked as Flett goes down. Puck picked up by Ted Irvin. Now it's McLeish, knocked down in front by Sealing. Flett ties up Sealing. Puck picked up by McLeish, 2-on-1. And Dorney can't handle a pass. Good setup. Dornhofer in the right wing. Puts it behind the net, but Jockerman will hand it there. Puts it away from Flett for McGregor, breaking on the far wing. 20 seconds left in the period. Here comes Stemkowski. Drives long. Glove save, Perrott. Perrott feeds it away from the on-rushing Ted Irvin. And now intercepted in front by Brad Clark. Down goes Irvin, and we got a Flyer penalty coming up.
Going to be a cross-check against Dupont. But now the Flyers are picking up penalties one after another, and this one really will be a washout as there's only 5 seconds remaining in the period. And so it will carry on about a minute and 55 in the period number 2, and the Rangers are swarming, and they're playing the kind of hockey that they're noted for. So Dupont, who thought Irvin was going to get that play in front of the net on a giveaway pass, cross-checked him from behind and picks up the call. And for Andre in the series, since he did not play the second game, it gives him his second penalty. 4 total minutes now. It comes at 19:55 for cross-checking. And the Flyers 2, 4, 5, 6, 7th of 10 called by Brian Lewis.
Face-off will be in the circle to the right of Bernie Perrott. Again, a Ranger power play. Flyers penalty killers have been pushed to the very limit here in the opening period, as Gene said. 7 of the 10 called by Brian Lewis have been assessed against the Flyers. Stemkowski against Bobby Clark. Clark wins the draw, takes it to Jimmy Watson behind the net, winds it around to Lonsbury. This should do it as the buzzer sounds here at Madison Square Garden. At the end of the first period of play, the score is the Flyers 2, New York 1. Be moving from right to left. New York down to our left and be moving from left to right. The Bruins are at Chicago for their 4th game of the series, with Chicago leading in that series 2-1. And they should be pretty close to the end of their first period of play, and we should be getting scores in from Chicago momentarily. And just as soon as we do, we'll be passing them along to you. The Rangers started to pick up momentum in that final period at the Spectrum the other night. The Flyers hung on and took advantage of a few Ranger mistakes to capitalize and win 5-2. And the Rangers have momentum going here, plus 17,500 of their fans. And believe you me, in a short series and a tight game, that means an awful lot. Flyers will be going with Bill Barber, and Bobby Clark as their penalty killers. The gag line up front for New York with Russo and Park at the points. And we're set for second period action. And for the play-by-play, let's go Flyers. Let's go Gene Hart.
Thank you, Dono. Rattel and Clark. Brian Lewis drops the puck, swept to the far boards. Hatfield beats Ashby to it, feeds back to Park at his own line, crosses right wing boards at center. Rousseau comes through to Rattel off his skate and stick, rolls to Van Impe, and he garms it off the far boards all the way down into the Ranger zone. Rousseau catches up with it, sets up along the right side of Jacquemin, tries to play a pass, blocked by Clark, and Gilbert has to dig it out in the near corner, plays up in the near wing. Rousseau racing for it. He had trouble with it. Now it's picked up by Gilbert, trailing Rattel. Goes into the zone. He's got Hatfield trying to get a shot. Now holds. Tries to dump it on the net. Blocked by Clark and flipped out to center ice as the Flyers had that play covered along the far. Now it's Gilbert. A weak pass, but Hatfield takes it. Tries to hit the flying Park over the line offside as he had to drag it in behind him, and Rousseau had already penetrated, anticipating a quick break into the zone. 1:09 remaining on the penalty to Dupont. We played 46 seconds into the second period, and the Flyers by 1, 2-1.
Bobby Rousseau leads all members of both of these clubs in playoff appearances with 121, the bulk of them spent with the championship Montreal Canadiens. And, you know, to watch him play in this series, Gene, he doesn't look a day older, I should say, than when he was with Montreal.
Well, obviously, he's shown that he's needed as he's been in 9 of the 16 goals the Rangers have scored all season against the Flyers. He has it now with Park at the Ranger line, looking through back to Rousseau, comes right up the middle, over the line, he's going to shoot, and it's blocked by the Flyers, dumped in along the near side to Rattel, back to Rousseau to the point, winding up Gilbert. He fired into that far corner, intending it for Hatfield. He's got Rattel, he's got Gilbert breaking for the net, there's a pass, and we're going to have another Flyer penalty against Van Impe. And as soon as Lansbury touches up, he's going to let it go and run some time off. Now he does, and it's going to be a trip against Van Impe. 35 seconds remaining, and the Flyers will be 2 men short. 18:40 remaining, second period, 2-1 Philadelphia.
Sooner or later, we got to start getting boring, right? Ed Van Impe goes to the box for tripping at 1:20 as he tripped up Rod Gilbert right in front of the Flyer crease, as the centering pass was just wide of Perron and came to the near board. So now the Flyers have dug a deep hole, and Gene, according to my calculations, Dave Schultz will be eligible to come out in another minute plus, the first stoppage of play thereafter.
Well, actually, he has to go 1:37 into the period, which means the clock should read 18:23, so he can come out, I would think, after 17 seconds. He almost had to serve a full period, 2, 2, 5, and 10. So he went off at 2:37 of the first period, makes him eligible at 1:37 of the second, but of course, he's not going to be involved in this power play, and Flyers get the draw, and Ashby chasing it. He wants to get it out before he's challenged by Rattel. Nice play as it bounced to Clark off Rattel from Ashby, and he drives it down the ice. 20 seconds now as the Flyers have to protect against Rousseau. They have a 2-man edge, and they're going for the tying goal. Over the line comes Gilbert on the right wing, breaking for the net. It's Rattel, and a shot by Gilbert. The save tipped out to the point, kept in by Park. Park crosses to Rousseau, right wing. Gives in to Hatfield. There he is. Shot. Super save. Rebound cleared out to the point. Shot by Park. A save by Perron again. And he kicks it out just as the penalty to Dupont expires. As Hatfield and then Park challenge Perron.
And that's why Bernie Perron is the leading goaltender in the National Hockey League with a 189 goals against average. Rousseau across to Hatfield. It got through Ashby. Glove save Perron. And it came right up the slot to Park. He swerved around on the forehand, drove again, another glove hand save. This time Perron squeezed the glove and held on.
And Bobby Clark, who never stops thinking, was behind Perron. Dave Schultz back on the bench, head down, probably a little stiff, but ready to go as soon as the Flyers come back at even strength. The penalty to Van Impe has another minute and 25 seconds. The Flyers skated from 16:39 to 18:39 shorthanded, from 19:55 to 1:20, and now they've literally will be going close to 6 minutes with a 1-man deficit. Clark remains out, and now they have Tkachuk at the left point. They've got Fährberg, Stemkowski with Vickers up front. The face-off goes back to the point. Tkachuk shot. Oh, wide of the net as Perron reached out. Fährberg in the near corner, trying to center, tied up by Lansbury, trying to dig it behind the net. In comes Stemkowski attempting to dig it out. Down goes Flyer defenseman in that corner as the play is called. Joe Watson. And so the face-off will be to the left of Perrant with 1:14 remaining on the penalty to Van Impe.
You know, you take this Ranger lineup and go down the lineup man for man, and it's awesome. You wonder why they weren't even more successful during the regular season.
But you out of break here as Park was beaten to the puck by the Flyers, who tipped it out. Now McLeish is out there, passing the near wing of Fährberg, penetrates at the point. Pass tipped right in, taken away by Watson. Plays off Lonsbury's stick and down the ice along the near boards. Less than a minute from the penalty as Tkachuk is back. Shadowed by another 18, Lonsbury, who slips, and then Tkachuk out to the near side of the net and up ice. He's got Vickers on his left. He's got Fährberg on his right. The Vickers over the line, overskates it on the wing. Shoves a weak pass right into Dupont. He overskates, has it at his feet. Clears up to McLeish along the near side. Make that Lonsbury. The Flyers now, McLeish clears it back to Joe Watson alongside and behind the Flyer net. Dumps it up along the near side, and McLeish tries to get it out. Fails the first time and does on the second. Past Tkachuk all the way down on the far corner of the Ranger zone. 25 seconds on the penalty. We've played 3 minutes into a scoreless second period. The Flyers lead 2-1, and the Rangers with the power play advantage. As Tkachuk casually brings to center, now picks up speed. Trying to play through to Stemkowski. Play broken up nicely. And here comes McLeish breaking through against Tkachuk. Barber for the net, but he goes in too soon offside with just 9 seconds remaining on the penalty.
Barber misread what McLeish intended to do. McLeish was ad-libbing as he closed in on the Ranger blue line. Instead of going across the line, cut parallel with it. Barber went straight through, forcing the offside, so it stops play with 9 seconds left on the penalty to Ed Van Impe. Faceoff will be outside the New York line on the Flyers' left wing. Fred Shero now sends out Flett and Clark as his forwards. Barry Ashby and Jimmy Watson stay on the defense for the Flyers.
All right, Clark loses the draw, sealing to Nielsen. Can't get it past Clark. Broken up, and then again by Clark, and then by Jimmy Watson as Nielsen circles around. The penalty is over. The Flyers at full strength. Now McGregor kicks it into the offensive left wing corner. Goes in with Ashby. Puck kick free. Ashby shoves it under McGregor to make sure as Irvin came by to try to poke it free behind the Flyer net, and we'll get a draw to the right of Perrant. 3:29 gone in the scoreless second period, and the Flyers still lead by a goal.
Still no report on the Boston at Chicago game. And just as soon as we get that out-of-town score, and we'll be keeping you posted as we get scores in from Chicago, Boston must win or face going back to Boston with a 3-1 deficit.
Well, you know who's coming out now with all the boos.
Number 8, Dave Schultz.
Schultz, Flett, and Clark. Stemkowski, the draw in the corner. Ashby there, winds it around the near side. McGregor's going to try to keep it away. Bumped by Schultz, and out comes Clark along the near side. He's got ceiling to contend with. Tries to get by him. Does! Going right on in! He shoots on! Jackman with a great save. As Clark peeked him, Jackman slid out, and had Clark been able to lift, he'd have had a goal, but I think his intention was to slide it under Jackman, who covered it, and Clark went right by ceiling and challenged the Ranger goaltender, who was equal.
Great move by Clark. In fact, a series of great moves as he carries it across the red line at center ice. Faked inside to split the two defensemen. Cut to the outside. Got around ceiling, and only Jackman stood in his way. Jackman committed himself, but Bobby couldn't get any lift on it.
Shot out Jackman, easy save, and with Flett and Crisp coming in, and Jackman a little concerned about throwing the puck away after coming out, decided to sit on it and stop action.
Bobby's got a very unique way of showing disgust at himself. He just takes his stick being held by his two hands and just shakes the stick, saying, why didn't I get it on the heel of the blade and get it a little lift? He had the top half of the net all to himself.
Flett takes the draw. He's dumped by Stemkowski as Ralph plays up at center ice. Tipped back to Stemkowski and stolen nicely away by Jimmy Watson. The Crisp over the line. Flett with a shot high off the near corner glass. Schultz dumps it behind the net. Jackman is there, poked away from him by Flett. Flett wants to get it back, holds it at the point, shot! Whistles one right over Jackman's shoulder over the top of the net. Flett's best shot of the series. Tipped in by Van Impe, cleared out by Dale Rolfe to center ice. Coming against the Flyers to Stemkowski on the right wing over the line. Tipped back and into center ice. Brad Park now has to retreat back to his own line while his wings clear as the forechecking of Crisp keeps him cautious. Crosses along the near boards to Rolfe, and Rolfe just gives the puck away at center to Van Impe. Throw to Crisp at the Ranger line. Right wing pass to Flett. Gives it into Crisp. Back to Flett. He's right on in. Shot! Trickles right in on Jackman, who didn't know where it was, and he swept it to the corner. And in the corner, we have Ralph along with Chris jamming it up, and play is called. With 15:15 remaining in the second period, it's 2-1 Philadelphia.
Back here in Madison Square Garden, 2-1 Flyers. Face off in the circle to the left of Ed Giacomin.
Kindrachuk, Selesky, and Barber tipped to the point. Ashby can't keep it in. Challenged by Rattel, and rather than gamble him poking it up along the boards and breaking behind the defenseman, Ashby makes sure he gets a tie-up just outside the Ranger blue line. The gag line out, the Hatfield and Gilbert around Rattel with Nielsen and Sealing. Kindrachuk, Barber, and Selesky with Ashby and Dupont. Rolls back into the Ranger zone. Nice play by Nielsen to fake Kindrachuk out of the way, but then an errant pass along the near wing is flipped to center ice by Barber. Cleared in by Rattel, offside as Gilbert had not yet come out.
A lot of people are wondering why Fred Chiro broke up his front line of Barber, Clark, and Flett. I think the answer is a very simple one, to give that third line of Kindrachuk, Selesky, and now Barber a bit more experience.
Along the side, Nielsen penetrates, trying to play through to Rattel, who was inside, but the Flyers break that play up and shoot it back into the Ranger zone. Sealing there quickly along the near side, pokes it under Kindrachuk's stick to Rattel. Drop pass to Gilbert to Hatfield over the line against Selesky. Centering pass right through the goal mouth, and Rattel just failed to get there in time. The McLeish right from Gilbert to Hatfield, who was in the crease. And down goes Kindrachuk at center ice on Nielsen's check. As play is getting ferocious, and the gag line almost capitalized on a play in the net. Here comes Gilbert through to Hatfield, tips it in the corner. Bumped off the play, but Gilbert is into the corner along with Ashby trying to dig it out. Does into that far side. Rattel is there, but out comes Barber, playing up on the far wing to Selesky, to Kindrachuk at center. 3 Rangers back into the near corner. Barber looks for the carom, shoots wide of the net. The deep rebound goes to the far side. Blatant out there, shot. Tip loose on the net, and out come the Rangers. Kindrachuk and Joe Watson back. There goes Vickers for the net. The pass is too far. He follows it in the corner. Rattel in front. Vickers can't center it. Down goes Watson. Centering, here it comes. Gilbert! And shooting and blocking is Bladen beautifully. Tom Bladen, his first shift on the ice, with Gilbert at point-blank range, blocked the shot. Changing the line. Here comes Ralph right up the middle. He's got Gilbert on his right. He's going to drop him a pass. Shot! Oh, just trickled wide on the deflection short side. Given out to the point to Park. He tips it into Gilbert along the near side. Centering pass on the net. And Perron hangs on with Vickers in the crease on the other side, being worked on by Bladen.
Flyers travel arrangements by expected to be more tested tonight than he has been thus far, and I'd have to say his prognostication has come true thus far.
Indeed. Tkachuk tries to draw it back, but he draws it all the way back to the Ranger line from the face-off. As Vickers circles at center, coming up against Jimmy Watson, over the line, holds, trying to play through, intended for Tkachuk. Play broken up as it rolled to Perrant, and it's sent down the ice by Dornhofer. McLeish will be there first, but it'll be either an icing or an offside, and it will be one twixt the other after 6:51 of a scoreless second period. Flyers still by 1, but the Rangers are really pressing and are carrying play.
It's called on the offside, and the difference, of course, is the center of the face-off circle versus the top of the face-off circle, which is where the pass emanated. So he picks up maybe 10, 12 feet in the difference, and it's going to be McLeish against Walter Tkachuk. 2-1 Flyers, with 6:51 into the second period. All of the scoring thus far came in the first period. And, of course, with the Ringling Brothers Circus here in New York, the garden maintenance crew is really getting a workout, changing from the circus to hockey, back to circus again.
Right, Tkachuk and McLeish at the top of the circle. Rick tries to shove it out and does, and he's got Dornhofer breaking in the right wing against Ralph. Tries to go inside him. Ralph screens him off nicely. Park takes the puck away. Tries to poke it past McLeish. Gives it to Russell. We're going to have a penalty and a violation as McLeish batted it forward to Lonsbury, and in his anxieties, he saw Lonsbury and Dornhofer going against Park 2-on-1 in front of the net, but the play was whistled out.
These same two teams will go at it again on Sunday afternoon here at the Garden, starting at 2 o'clock. 1:55 Gene Hart's pregame show on WCAU Radio. We'll be taking the air live from the Garden at 2. Lonsbury and Dornhofer, 2/3 of the McLeish line, as now on for the Flyers, Clark, Flett, and Schultz.
Against Stemkowski, Irvin, and McGregor, with Sealing and Nielsen, who gets the puck, throws to center onto the stick of Jimmy Watson. Challenged, bats a pass off Clark's skate, dumped into the zone, stolen away, and clipped out the center ice. Play a little ragged there. No one in possession. Van Impe tries to shoot it in and dumps it out of the rink, and we'll have a face-off at center ice.
And it's going to be just outside the face-off dot, between the red line and the face-off dot. Again, the point of emanation of a shot by Van Impe, which rode up over the glass on the far side of the rink. Clark against Stemkowski.
Along the near side, racing for Jimmy Watson. Challenging him as Stemkowski has trouble with it. Almost fails to clear it out, and then does, and Clark makes a play. Kept in by the Rangers. Watch out, they've got Irvin in front. McGregor on the far boards. Dumps it into the corner. There is Stemkowski trying to center. Does. Nobody there as the Flyers effectively screened out, and Schultz looks for Clark. Clark has it along the near side. Flips to center. Flett racing for it along the near side with Nielsen. Nielsen up ice along the near boards. Gets it to McGregor. Poked away and cleared back to Irvin. Over the Flyer line. Shot. Perrant reaches out. Steers it behind to Watson. Up along the near side to Schultz. He can't control. Sealing backtracking away from Clark. Plays up to McGregor. Stolen. And fed by Clark to Flett. Off the boards. Shot over the top of the net. Over the glass and out of the rink. And the faceoff will come probably in the neutral zone. As they
with 11:56 to go in the middle period of play, the score remains Flyers 2 and the Rangers 1. All set to go. Face-off outside the New York line. Clark again against Stemkowski.
Clark, Kelly, and Schultz, along with Dupont and Ashby, shot on Jackaman from mid-ice. Stick to the near corner. Park is challenged by Schultz. Puck stolen by Dupont and cleared out. Up ice to Stemkowski. Going against Ashby. A shot. And Perrant reaches out and makes the save. Perrant and Ashby knocked down behind the net. Flyers and Rangers try to come out along the near side. Ashby is being hooked into the corner by Irvin. Kelly digs it out. Schultz can't keep it in. Shot blocked by Kelly, or by Clark from Park, and out he comes with Schultz and Schultz. Over the line, Schultz comes. Can't control the puck as it was a drop pass from Clark. Now Irvin passes behind Ralph, and it's given up nicely to McLeish over the line. Kelly's got Schultz in front. And the shot by Park as Kelly tried to shoot instead of pass was blocked. Rangers try to come out, and they do. McGregor at center, surrounded by four Flyers. Gives it to Irvin. Shot off Perrant's stick, and it caroms off the glass into the seats along the near side, and the face-off deep in the Flyer zone, directly lost to the right.
The new country movement has left behind the corn, but has kept the husk, sweetened it just a bit, and the result is eloquent. It's best brought to you by the one and only Roy Clark, the Academy of Country Music's Entertainer of the Year in 1973. Clark will appear at the Spectrum on April 27th at 8 p.m. Tickets priced at $6.50, $5.50, and $4.50. They're on sale now at the Spectrum and Ticketron outlets. Don't miss the man who can do it all, Roy Clark. In the last 5 minutes or so, the Rangers have started to pick up the tempo of the play, and they're carrying the offense to the Flyers.
Chuk out there, puck stolen as he's won with the McLeish line up to Dornhofer on the right wing at center. Four Rangers back. Dornhofer into the near corner, racing for it is Sealing, taking it away from McLeish, winding it around quickly to Vickers on the far side, who's challenged by Lonsbury up to Tkachuk, right wing to Fährberg, off his stick into the corner, followed by Jimmy Watson. Bumped off the puck. In comes Tkachuk, in comes McLeish. They tie it up again, a face-off to the left of Perrant.
In the first period, the Rangers outshot the Flyers 8-5. We do not have a shot clock here at the Madison Square Garden as we do at the Spectrum to keep you abreast as play is going on. But it would appear to me, Gene, that the Flyers, the Rangers have had much the better of the edge on the shots and go thus far in this period.
Yes, and right now the game seems to have, after all of the hoopla and fireworks of the penalties and even the crowd, as well as the game, has settled down into a cat and mouse game as the Flyers protect and the Rangers attack. Jimmy Watson in the corner, challenged by Rattel, trying to get it up along the near side. Now in there is Gilbert, but it's Barber clearing it out as the Rangers setting 2 and 3 men in, trying to get that puck away. Jimmy Watson gets a pass, blocked by Hatfield. Too far through for Rattel, who's going to beat Van Impe into the corner. Looks to center, tries to play for Gilbert, who digs it out. Can't. Van Impe tying him up around the net. Gilbert, Hatfield tries to center. Taken away by Kindrachuk. Stolen back by Rattel. Stolen back by Kindrachuk around the near side. Up along to Barber. Barber tips it at center. Zaleski races for it and comes over the line. Going into the corner. Looks to center. And Jacqueline had to stick out. Barber tries to come out. Knocked away by Jacqueline again. Up along the near side. Dumps in the corner to Kindrachuk. Kindrachuk tries to center. Stolen nicely by Sealing around the far side. Hatfield challenged by Ashby, who keeps it in, but then it's tipped up to Rattel. Rattel center ice as Kindrachuk is going to pick up the man. Over the line comes Gilbert, stolen away by Dupont. Back comes Barber with Zaleski, 2-on-2. Zaleski for the net. Pass is weak and behind as Ralph had Zaleski tied up. Play still going on. Tip pass Barber. Here come the gag line up with Vickers on the left. Rattel up at center with Gilbert over the line. Vickers for the net. Blocked. Rebound block. And it goes into the corner to Zaleski, and he clears it out off Rattel's skate all the way down the ice, so there'll be no icing called. Clock running, 9:15 left in a scoreless second period, 2-1. Flyers leading. Now McLeish steals it away. Over the line, shot. Tipped wide of the corner. It's spun around as Dornhofer, and we're going to have a Ranger penalty, and it's for hooking against Dale Rolfe, and it comes at 10:55. And with 9:05 left in period number 2, 2-1 Flyers.
Back here at Madison Square Garden, Dale Rolfe off for a holding time of his penalty at 10:55, so the Flyers will get their first power play opportunity of this period. Out in Chicago at the end of the first period, Boston leads Chicago 2-1. Greg Shepard and Ken Hodge for the Bruins. Pitt Martin scoring for Chicago.
Flyers have only had one power play, and they've cashed in on it. That was McLeish's great goal as he broke through the defense, was tripped, and while sliding on his knees and then his tummy, scored a goal by flipping it past Ed Shackelman. All right, Flyers with the edge. They have McLeish out there with Dornhofer and Lonsbury. Bladen with Barber. Barber over the red line. Dumps it in. Jackelman will dig it out. Trying to play off. Knocked down into the corner by Barber. Barber wrapped up by Sealing. Lonsbury gets it free. Looking for a man at the point. There's Tommy Bladen. He's going to shoot. Tipped wide. Bounces through. They scramble for it. Knocked down is Lonsbury. Shoves it into Dornhofer. He's got a man in front. Shot! Oh, score! Billy Barber for a case of tasty cake from Dornhofer and Tommy Bladen, and it's 3-1 Philadelphia.
Time of the goal comes at 11 minutes, 33 seconds, and the Flyers have taken a 3-1 lead on their second power play goal of the night, their 10th on the series. The drive started from Tommy Bladen, a bouncing puck in front, touched up by Lonsbury. So Lonsbury will be in on it. Lonsbury to Dornhofer to Barber, who puts it home and Jackelman did get a slight piece of it. I believe it trickled between his legs, off his pads, and into the New York net behind him. Time of the goal, 11:33. A power play goal for the Flyers. It's 3-1 Flyers. Bill Barber gets the goal. And it should be from Lonsbury and Dornhofer.
All right, here comes Ralph off the ice. The Rangers back by 2. Over the line, Stemkowski. A shot. Perrant sticks it into the corner. Steers it away from the on-charging Stemkowski to Clark. Twists away, lifts it up to Crisp, and Crisp comes to center with Dupont and Flett. 3-on-2. Over the line. Wants to drop a pass, does Dupont. Can't. Taken into the corner by Ralph, and the puck sprung free by Stemkowski. Out along the near side. Plays to McGregor. McGregor looking up ice. Keeps it himself at the right wing. Over the line. Drop pass. Coming to the near side is Irvin. Looking back at Park at the point. Wants to angle for a shot. Throws it for a screen. Tipped wide by Stemkowski. Dumped behind the net, and there are only Flyers there. And it's wound around by Dupont along the near boards all the way down the ice. If Clark gets there first, he'll be onside, and there'll be no icing. And no, Park does a nice job of screening him off, touching up, and icing against the Rangers.
Well, actually, Park had a more direct route to the puck as it slid around the boards. Clark tried to catch it before it made the curve, so icing is the call. Really, the only difference would have been a matter of about 10 or 12 feet. Sometimes that can be a big difference, but at any rate, it's in the circle to the left of Perrant. As we're down to 7:32 left in second period play, the Flyers have expanded their lead once more to 2 goals. It's 3-1. And strange, Gene, that it's been the Flyers that have used the power play route, and New York, with 66 during the season, have been held to but 4 in the 2
Watch out,
series.
Gilbert draws back to Nielsen with a shot. Nice kick save, Perrant on the short side. Zaleski trying to clear out, tipped off the stick into the neutral zone by Hatfield, and that fed down ice into the Ranger zone off the stick of Schultz. Schultz and Kindrachuk forechecking, as is Zaleski. The 3 of them are beaten, and out comes Rattel with Gilbert. Tied up in there by Kindrachuk, and the puck kept in center ice on a nice poke check by Van Impe. Now it's Rattel over the line into the near corner to Nielsen, who dumps it in. There is Kindrachuk out the far side, tied up by Hatfield. Gilbert wants to center, tries to spin it out to the point. He's tied up and hooked and held a little bit by Van Impe. Puck into the neutral zone. Nielsen shoots it right back in, and Hatfield is right by Perrant, and that's an obvious offside.
Actually, there were 2 Rangers still in the zone. The puck came back in, so there was no question on the offside call by linesman Ron Finn. Again, that score from Chicago at the end of the first period. The Bruins lead the Hawks 2-1. Greg Shepard, who's had a fine playoff year thus far for Boston, along with Ken Hodge, the goal scorers for the Bruins. Pitt Martin, the lone scorer for the Hawks.
Rattel dumps it into the zone. Van Imp crosses to Jimmy Watson. Challenged by Rattel. Dumps it off at center ice. Off the skate of Barber. It rolls to ceiling. Crossing the Nielsen. Trying to play through on the Flyers zone. Does, but it rolls away from Gilbert to Jimmy Watson. Up to Barber. Stolen away again by Rattel, who has probably been at his most effective in this game tonight. Up ice comes Ceiling as he picks it up at his own line. Through, looking for Hatfield. Goes the length of the ice. In there first is Zaleski. And icing is called, probably, I think, for the first time in this period against New York.
In fact, one of the very few icing calls made against the Rangers all night long. 3-1 the score. 6:24 to go in second period play here at Madison Square Garden as the Flyers stay with Tkachak, Barber, and Zaleski. Jimmy Watson and Barry Ashby. Neil Francis comes out with Tkachuk, Bill Fairbairn, and Steve Vickers face off in the circle to the left of Ed Giacomin.
Now Freddie Shero wants to make a defensive change. Now he's giving Joe Watson a shift on that left side, giving Dupont a breather with Ashby on the right. Barber, Zaleski centered by Kindrachuk against Tkachuk, Fairbairn, Vickers with Park and Rolfe to the left of Giacomin. And now Brian Lewis has spotted a little debris in the ice and picks it up. Kindrachuk with Tkachuk. Tkachuk draws it back to Ralph, who circles away, comes behind the net to the near side, out and flies past Kindrachuk, who slashes at his skates, comes to the Flyer line, wants to get past Joe Watson. Joe Watson's going to pick up a penalty for hooking or tearing him down on the hold, and there's the call, and it's hold against Joe Watson. And with 6:08 remaining in the second period, 3-1 Philadelphia.
Joe Watson goes to the Flyer penalty box for holding Dale Rolfe at 13:52. Rolfe flung the puck into the Flyers near corner right, and Watson stayed with him, tied him up, and he's off for the next 2 minutes of play as New York again goes with their power play for the second time in this period.
I think this is a crucial play at this juncture of the game for the Rangers, Don. Puck right at Tkachuk's skates. Cleared to Ver, but he's got a man in front. Vickers, there it is! Score! They got the draw to Fairbairn, and Vickers took his favorite spot right in the crease, and the puck couldn't have traveled more than 3 feet as he touched it in the crease to the right of Perrant for the score. Vickers from Fairbairn and Tkachuk at 13:57.
And for Steve Vickers, it only took he and his Ranger teammates 5 seconds to beat Perrant on the power play effort. Steve Vickers scoring his second 1974 series goal. Tkachuk and Fairbairn the assist. We're quite sure that's the way it'll read. And now it's once again a one-goal hockey game, 3-2 Flyers, on the 5th power play goal of the 1974 combined Stanley Cup Series for New York.
You can almost read that one all the way, as it was in the corner, and Fairbairn saw Vickers, and Perrant had no chance on the short side as he tried to take a poke at it. Went past him, and all Vickers had to do was redirect. Now, Don, it's incredible here. As we look down on the first row, you would think you had a visiting foreign diplomat or a president or vice president or a governor, as there is a long arm of the law in every row along the way. And every time a fan appears to be getting a little unruly, a host of security men quickly jab to that scene as Emil Francis paces the bench behind the Ranger forwards, and just to his right on the other side of the exitway is Fred Shero. Well, they kept the Tkachuk line off the board entirely with no points or assists in the first 2 games. Tkachuk had no points or assists either in the Montreal series or this one up to tonight. Now they have 2 goals, and that could be a key to the Ranger comeback. Now Dupont up to Chris. Chris tries to feed a pass blocked by Ralph, stolen back by Chris, and he flips it into the zone. Rolling through a mass of players, and it comes to the near side. Fairbairn, dumped by Flett, and he in turn is wrapped up in the corner by Brad Park, and Fairbairn is getting up slowly. Not so much hurt as I believe his skate was caught under Bill Flett's right boot.
That has to be one of the most solid body checks any of the Flyers have thrown tonight, as the Cowboy really dug his shoulder into Fairbairn and leveled him. Face-off will be in the circle to the right of Giacomin. Flyers lead 3-2. We've got 5:47 to go here in the second period of play as both teams have traded goals. And again, across the way, Gene, the long arm of the law reaches out there.
You know, Don, I think the thing that might displease Fred Shero is the fact that 3 times now the Flyers have scored and the Rangers have come back within minutes to get one back. And that's not taking advantage of the opportunities, you know, to keep the lead and draw up that 2-goal edge. Down behind Perron. Stemkowski in there. Challenging Dupont. Pass blocked high in the air and out of the rink, and it's off Stemkowski, so the face-off will come into center ice. 5:31 remaining in the second period. Each team has scored a goal, so the Rangers still trail by 1. The Flyers leading 3-2.
Someone down in the corner to our right gets a Stanley Cup souvenir as both teams take advantage of the stoppage in play to change lines. Flyers will go with McLeish, Lonsbury, and Dornhofer. Stemkowski, McGregor, and Irvin out there for New York.
To Sealing, flips it into the zone. There goes Jimmy Watson with Stemkowski, who's big and strong. Ties him up in the corner. Now Dornhofer in there to help out, and they're wrapped up along with Irvin. They jab at one another, trying to get a little extra oomph in there, as Irvin has his left glove up against Dornhofer's neck.
Ted Irvin, along with Ron Harris and occasionally Peter Stemkowski, the recognized policeman of this New York Rangers club. Irvin, a big, strong winger, will not back down from anyone and will oftentimes be the intimidator, the aggressor, just to shake up his club and get things going. Now it's Tkachuk leading his line on the ice. Fairbairn on the right wing and Vickers on the left wing.
Big key has Tkachuk been getting the draws. He gets it again, goes into the corner, tied up by Van Imp. Trying to kick it free is Vickers, but he does right onto the stick of McLeish, flips the center ice, tipped away, and down goes Fairbairn as he was off balance. The puck was given him. McLeish is forechecked by Nielsen and rolls into the corner. Winding it around is Jimmy Watson to Lonsbury. He can't get it out. Now it does. Here's McLeish with Dornhofer. 2-on-1. Over the line. In. Shot. Blocked. McLeish the rebound. And it's tipped to the corner. As saving the day there was Jim Nielsen and the puck to center ice. Flyers had an opportunity to hurt the Rangers there as they got a 2-on-1. Down goes Jimmy Watson on the near side. Checked by Fairbairn. Dornhofer into the corner. Lonsbury chases it with Nielsen. Tempo picking up. Lonsbury ties Nielsen up in the Ranger left wing defensive corner for a stoppage of play with 4.5 left in a second period that seemed to settle down into a dog cat and mouse game and now is opened up again.
Fairbairn could very well have been tagged with a charging call on Jimmy Watson as he kept right on going at Watson long after the puck had been passed off. But Brian Lewis again chose to let that one slide, and now we've got a face-off to the left of Giacomin in the Rangers zone. We're down to 4.5 minutes left in second period play.
Zaleski on the far side tries to dump it on the net. Blocked, stolen away by Rattel. Winds it around the boards to Ralph. Tied up by Kinrachuk. He goes down, and Ralph lifts it into center ice, and trying to break was Rattel with Hatfield, but it was tipped away by Van Imp. Rattel back in his own zone to Park. Stolen away as Park tried to lift it up ice by Kinrachuk. Now played through Park and Hatfield by the Rangers. Now Gilbert is checked. Here goes Rattel penetrating. Behind the net, overskates, sends it out along the near side. Park challenged by Kinrachuk, and it rolls to Barber. Barber fails to get it out. Played into Rattel. Rattel's got Hatfield. Saved by Perron in a great play as this gag line is starting to chug.
This is by far the best game the Rangers have played in the three against the Flyers in this semifinal round, and it's really been great goaltending by Bernie Perrant that's been the big difference. Again, Rattel setting up Hatfield in the far face-off circle, and Perrant from point-blank range making the save, juggling the puck, then gloving it, squeezing the glove to hold on. Face-off upcoming in the circle to Perrant's right. Flyers lead 3-2 with down to 3:46 left here in the middle period of play. Bernie Perrant with a 1.89 goals against average in regular season play to lead all goaltenders. 1-3-1 going into tonight's game in Stanley Cup playoff.
Winds it back. There's Ralph. Saved by Perrant, and he drops it right in front with Stemkowski pushed off one way by Ashby and McGregor tied up by Dupont, but we have a face-off again to the right of Perrant. I think a key tonight, Don, the Rangers are getting a percentage much higher getting the face-offs than they did in games 1 and 2.
Well, Bobby Clark led all face-off getters in the last game in the Spectrum with 20 out of 27. And you can't score without the puck. Possession 9/10 of the law.
Well, Clark gets this one back to Ashby, up along the far boards. Nice feed to Clark, and he'll come up to center ice with Schultz on his left. Over the line, Schultz's shot, tipped wide behind the net, bounces there. Flett tries to center, goes to Schultz, tipped away, and here come the Rangers. McGregor up along the near side, leaves for Zabkowski. Pass stolen away nicely by Ashby, tipped off Schultz's stick. Over the line comes Clark, and offside as it was deflected into his skates, and he dragged it behind him. 3:18 remaining in the second period. The Flyers continue to lead by 1.
Again, these same two teams will go at it in Game 4 here at the Madison Square Garden on Sunday afternoon. We'll be carrying the play-by-play on WCAU Radio. Gene Hart's pregame show at 1:55 will be on the air live from the Garden here at 2.
We've got Clark on the wing now, along with Flett. Crisp at center. Nielsen tries to get it out, almost stolen away, but covering up nicely is Irvin. Still in the corner, dumps it into the near side. Sealing races for it. Crisp after him, pokes it away. Clark tries to keep it in and just fails at the blue line. And Matt Pavlich was right alongside Bobby and pointed there and said offside.
I'd like to make a correction. It's going to be WPEN, Harlan, both AM and FM? Both AM and FM. That's WPEN 95 on your AM dial. That's Sunday afternoon.
Rangers get the draws. Irvin back to Nielsen alongside Sealing. Sealing forechecked again by Crisp and has trouble with it. Off to Nielsen on the far side. Plays through. Here comes Stemkowski with a shot. Oh, just off the heel of Perront's glove and up and over the glass, and maybe another sail inch or two higher, and the Rangers tie this game. But Perront had enough of it there to kick it out of harm's way.
You know, Gene, every time I see Stemkowski in action here on Ranger ice, I can't help but think of that triple overtime that both you and I had the pleasure, if you will, of broadcasting here to the wee hours of the morning against Chicago 4 or 5 years ago. A great playoff contender.
Let's gets this draw. Tkachuk has been effective tonight. Rolls, though, to Van Imp. Around the board, the near side. Fährberg wants to keep Lonsbury off. It goes to Park at the point. In along the near side, centered, and tipped away by Van Imp up to McLeish, who breaks with Dornhofer and Lonsbury. McLeish over the line. Nice sweep check by Ralph. Takes a clearing pass away from Dornhofer as he appeared to be turning the defense on the right wing. McLeish behind the net. Steals it away from Park. Gives to Lonsbury. Lonsbury wants to get rid of it. Tries to dump it in the corner. Fairburn dumps it away. Right to Lonsbury. A shot blocked. The rebound is loose in front and cleared out to center ice by the Ranger defense. 2:18 remaining second period and the clock running. Van Imp along the near side. Pass rolls to Park. Stolen away by Lonsbury, and he was taken down, and no penalty was called. And even the Ranger fans here were going, ooh. Back comes Ralph into the near corner. Fairburn there. But overskating it here is Tkachuk. Shave as Tkachuk fed to Vickers, and the save was made by Perront, just stretched out the glove on the pad on that right side. Back comes Sealing. His shot offside as Perront makes the grab with 1:47 left. And Don, when they go ooh in New York, you know it's a penalty.
Well, I can't help but agree. That's the way we saw it up here. Bernie Perront again coming up with a key save, and he's been stellar here tonight. A long drive. Perront making the save off the boards. And it was picked up there by Tkachuk. And he kicked it wide as coming in off that left wing was Steve Vickers and his favorite post right outside that Flyer crease.
Rattel, Nielsen along near side to Sealing. Wants to dump it in. Gilbert clears it in. Van Imp had to go off his skate. Failed once. Gets it a second time up to Clark to Crisp. Looking for Barber on that far side. To the Ranger defense. Kicked away by Sealing. He circles away from Crisp. Up to Rattel on the left wing. Now Hatfield right up the middle. Gilbert on his right. Over the line. Through. Looking for Hatfield. Rolls still Gilbert. Tips to Nielsen. Rolling puck. Shot. Blocked in front. They scramble for it. And Jimmy Watson knocks it to the near side. Gilbert a shot. They score! Gilbert fired on the net. Through a screen, and it trickled on a Bernie Perront, and this game is tied at 18:44. I don't know if Gilbert will get it. It may be Hatfield in front of the net who got a tip in, but we'll have to look at it again.
Gene, I think it went in off of a Flyer skate. Vic Hatfield, it was shaken up on that check, and I believe he could be through. There's the check, that a solid check by Bobby Clark, but on the ensuing play, I think you're going to see that the drive from Nielsen deflected in off of Well, Watson cleared it. Gilbert will drive from the near boards. And it appeared to go off the stick of Bobby Clark by Perrant. So it'll be Gilbert getting the goal. And it's all tied up 3-3 as Hadfield is led noticeably limping. Actually being carried to the New York Ranger dressing room. A hard check, a good clean one thrown by Clark. And it could very well be that Hadfield has re-injured that bad ankle.
Well, a good play by Gilbert, who had nowhere to go and just uncorked that big slap shot. They give it to Hadfield, although he never touched the puck. And it will come Hadfield from Gilbert. And it comes at 18:44. So the Rangers, who have trailed 2-0, have trailed 3-1. Now tied this hockey game at 3 on a good opportunity goal. Now back comes Billy Barber against Ralph. Holds, tries to dump it weakly in and does on Jackman, who steers it away from both Clark and Lonsbury. Up ice comes Ralph. Over the line. Wants to play in. Does. Tip. Save. It's loose in front. And cleared out along the near side as the Rangers came close. Back comes Clark with Barber and Lonsbury over the line, and he can't control, has to deke back at the blue line and retreat to his own zone. 40 seconds left in the period. The game is tied at 3. Up along the near side, gives to Lonsbury. Lonsbury tries to penetrate, runs into the linesman, and a good check from McGregor, and Park has it now. With a half minute left in the period, 3-3 the score. Up ice in the right wing to McGregor. Into the corner. Tips out off the side of the net. Touched up by Van Imp. Gives it away along the near side to Irvin. Looks to center. Right in front, they whack at it, but Perrant had it on the fly as McGregor tried to tip it out of his mitt with just 14 seconds left in the second period.
Face-off will be in the Flyers zone. It's going to be dropped in the near circle to the left of Perrant. As Ted Irvin scooped that puck out of the near corner to our right, their right wing corner, flipped it right in front. Backhand glove save Perrant, as on both knees in front was Peter Stemkowski, and Bernie Perrant made sure that Stemkowski didn't get back to his feet and attempt to re-enter the fray after the puck had been tied up. It's going to be Tkachuk against Crisp with 14 seconds left in the second period of play. Score tied 3-3.
All right, Tkachuk, he's got Fährberg at the top. This is a key draw. Don't want to get it back to Fährberg. Crisp wants to get it in towards the goal and does. Dupont around the back of the net. Comes this way as Tkachuk forechecking. Still behind the net. Clock down to 7 seconds. Up along the near side. McLeish will jab it out, and that'll do it for the period with 2-1. And the buzzer sounds. And we've completed the end of the second period with a score of the Flyers 3 and the Rangers 3. The penalties have been called. 2 for 6, 8, 9 for the Flyers. 4 for the Rangers. For the third period action, let's go Flyers and let's go Don Earl.
Thank you, Gene. And it's going to be the Flyers moving to our right. Clark draws it back to Dave Schultz. Schultz up the right side on his off wing, gets across the blue line, trying to close him, but sweeps it into the right wing corner. Centering pass blocked off by Peter Stemkowski. Kept in by Ashby. Ashby rolls it behind the net, picked up by Brad Park around to the far wing for Bruce McGregor. Breaking was Stemkowski, kept in the zone by Clark. Now it's McGregor coming out the near side, escapes a Clark check. Here comes McGregor feeding off to Stemkowski. The drive, glove save. Perrant feeds off to Dave Schultz. Schultz up to Clark, and Clark just banks it off the far boards, captured at center ice and dumped right back in again by Dale Rolfe. Perrant takes the rebound, feeds off to Flett. Kept in the zone by Rolfe. Stemkowski tries to spring it loose for McGregor, but here's Moose Dupont. Wheeling in his own zone. Threads a pass which would have been offside anyway, and it's going to be icing now against the Flyers as Dale Rolfe touches up. Face off in the Flyers zone down to our left.
We have no further scoring, although we may be getting it now on the message board here. It says in Chicago the second period, Hawks 2, and I think we've already given you that. The Hawks 2 and the Bruins 4. And I don't know if they're going to give the goal scorers. Don had the early ones, but we don't have them now. It was Shepard and Hodge in the first period for Boston and Martin for Chicago. Tkachuk line that's been effective tonight against McLeish.
Face-off controlled by the Flyers this time. Jimmy Watson up to McLeish on the left wing boards. He just dumps it to center ice to no one in particular. Now it's Nielsen to Tkachuk. Right wing, the left wing closing. Vickers poked away from the puck by Bernie Perrant. Now it's McLeish from Dornhofer. Can't get out of the zone. Vickers Dumps it right on the stick of Jimmy Watson. Watson to center. Lead pass for Dornhofer. Dornhofer across the line. Can't get a shot away. Skated to the corner by Rod Sealing. Centering pass by Lonsbury is blocked off. Dorney trying to dig it loose. Still digging. Dorney's tough in those corners. There's McLeish. A shot in front as he tried to deflect it off of Lonsbury. McLeish gets it back again. Shot is wide as Lonsbury was camped right in front of Giacomin. Now it's Vickers. Banks it off the backboard to the far corner for Fairbairn. Fairbairn gets around McLeish and comes to center ice. His pass on the stick of Vickers. Vickers drives from the line. Glove save, Perrant. Drops it off for Jimmy Watson. Up to center ice, controlled by New York. It's Rod Sealing. Sealing slows down play a bit, gives it off to Nielsen, off the stick of Tkachuk to Fairbairn, now controlled by Jimmy Watson. To center ice, bouncing puck picked up on the right wing. Fairbairn puts it right on the stick of Don Selesky. Selesky winds up, fires from outside. The rebound controlled by Gilbert as Kindrachuk goes in after it, tries to turn the corner. He's smothered by a Brad Park check, and now it's Rolf. And Kindrachuk is out. Kindrachuk is out. And they're allowing play to continue. I don't believe it. They're allowing play to continue. Brian Lewis saw it and allowed play to continue.
Well, he took a look and saw him down and waited until he obviously saw he wasn't moving. And then I think even Ed Giacomin made sort of a semi-signal, and then he blew the whistle as the Rangers broke at the Flyer line. Kindrachuk went in there in a heap, fighting for that puck, and went down, and you couldn't really tell for sure that there had been an injury until Giacomin and the Rangers broke off, and he just did not move. There goes the Flyers doctor out there, John Wolf, being taken out by Barry Ashby, and Kindrachuk appears to be unconscious as they rolled him over on his back, and perhaps we can recapitulate that play as the puck went loose on a carom off the shot from in front, taken behind. Kindrachuk went in there with a Ranger. They bumped against the board. He dug it out and looked to center it, and then he went headlong down, and it appeared as if Brad Park, coming from the left side of the net, caught Kindrachuk in the neck or in the head with his knee, and that very easily could have caused the unconsciousness. And Kindrachuk went down, and you couldn't tell for sure, as we said, that there was an injury there until he did not move. So with 17:32 remaining in the third period, the score is tied at 3. We're early in the third period with a tie hockey game, and R.S. Kindrachuk, and battling for the puck behind the Ranger net, tried to center, and as he fell forward towards the outside of the net, he apparently ran into a Brad Park knee and was knocked unconscious, and he's still a little bit wobbly as he's being escorted by Moose Dupont on his left and Rick McLeish on his right to the Flyers players bench. And I guess just where Kindrachuk is situated will determine just how he was injured or how seriously. If he goes to the bench, you would appear as he is going to bench, so he was just shaken up and will just need some recuperative time there to get himself back in the fettle. But it was Kindrachuk falling forward and his head colliding, I'm sure, with Brad Park's right knee as Park came around to help. And the play was stopped on the ensuing rush-up ice at the Flyer line. 3-3 the score, 17:32 left. Rattel line out against crisp line, and play is on.
Puck comes off the near boards to Barry Ashby, gets by him, but an offside is called against New York as one of the Rangers was in the zone before the puck. Face-off outside the Flyer blue line. So we've got a brand new hockey game. The Rangers coming back to tie it late in the second period. A goal by Vic Hadfield from Rod Gilbert at 18:44. Banked off the Flyer backboards, controlled by Dupont behind the Flyer net to our left. Dupont cuts right in front of Perrant, a dangerous move. Lead pass intended for Barber. He can't handle it. Now it's Park to the near side for Rolf, back to Park on the far side. Here's Rattel at center. Drops it off for Park. Park up to Rod Gilbert. He's bumped off the puck. Crisp off the backboard for Dupont in the far corner. Forechecking is Rattel. Breaks up the play. Dupont can't sweep it out to the breaking Barber. Now it's Ashby to Selesky coming up the right wing. Selesky across the red line. Fires at long range. Kick save. Giacomin comes up the slot. Kept in the zone by Ashby. Crisp goes for it. Bouncing puck in front. Barber is tied up. Crisp goes for it. Loose puck. And it's skated away by Ted Irvin. Now it's Rattel, the lead man, across the Flyers line. Shot. Kick save. The right pad of Perrant. Flicks out. As back come the Flyers. Selesky tries to lead Chris, but the puck hops over his stick. Gilbert cutting inside of Gilbert is Bob Kelly. Kelly bumped off the puck, and back comes New York. Clark stays with Gilbert. He back passes to Sealing. Sealing up to Walter Tkachuk. Right wing. It's Stemkowski. McGregor on there. Not Tkachuk. Here comes Jimmy Watson out to Flett. Flett across the New York line. Cuts to the top of the slot. Still controlled. Flett trying to find some daylight. Drops it back to Van Imp. Throw a screen. Cleared away up from the slot by Sealing, but it's controlled by Jimmy Watson. Ron Harris broken up by Clark. Now it's Kelly back to the Flyers. Across the red line. Kelly fires from the blue line. Off the stick hand of Giacomin. He's roving. Looking for McGregor, but it's going to go back to the Flyer zone. Jimmy Watson will reach it before it's icing. Passes up the boards. The Rangers get control. Nielsen blocked in front by Jimmy Watson. Now it's Clark bumped by Stemkowski. Nielsen at center ice. Across to Sealing. Sealing from the red line. A bouncer. Glove save on the first hop by Perron. Van Imp up the right wing boards for Flett. Lead pass intended for McLeish. Gets by Park. McLeish goes for it. Pokes it away from Giacomin, but Giacomin had enough on it to sweep it to the near corner. Rolfe coming up the left wing to Stemkowski. Shot wide of the Flyer net. Perron puts it behind the net for Ashby. Trying to tie it up there. Gets it up to Lonfrey. Lonfrey trying to get around Park as they're sending two men in deep. The Rangers pressing. Here's Ron Harris. Shot wide. As 17,500 Ranger fans here at Madison Square Garden are voicing their approval with every Ranger move. Here comes Brad Park. Play broken up by McLeish. McLeish across the New York line. Fires. Glove save, Giacomin. Plays it to the far corner for Bill Fairbairn. Fairbairn challenged by McLeish. Now the lead pass goes to Walter Tkachuk at center. Gets by McLeish. Across the line using McGregor as a screen. Bouncing puck goes to the far corner. McLeish trying to get control. Look out in front. Back on the face. Save Perron. A super save by Bernie Perron. As we've got Vickers and Dupont jousting in front of the Flyer net. Play still on. A drive by Dale Rolfe. Another great save. And Perron leaps out to smother them. Rebounds and tie it up. 13:43 left in third period play. The score is tied 3-3.
Back here at the Garden, Bernie Perron looking on imperturbably as he just came up with a series of fine saves, particularly on a bullet from the left point by Dale Rolfe through a screen. Couldn't handle the rebound at first, but then dove out in front to fall on it as Vickers was coming from the corner looking for the loose puck.
Back to live action again. Dave Schultz overskates the puck in his own zone. Gilbert gets the shot away. A great skate save for Ron. He's quick as a cat. And the score is tied 3-3 as it's tied up just outside the Flyers' blue line. Nielsen for New York. Bill Barber, the Flyers.
Shots were 23-11, 2-1 the margin after two periods, and the Rangers are building on that total as they keep peppering away on Toronto in the first 6.5 minutes of period number 3.
Flyers have got to get an offense rolling here if they're going to pull this one out. Bill Barber double-teamed and broken up as Rattel drops it across the way for Rod Sealing. Return pass now picked up by Nielsen. Nielsen across the Flyer blue line. Feeds off, but offside is the call as I believe Gilbert went across the line a fraction before the puck.
Jean Rattel, who is coming into tonight with his 60th game in playoff hockey, and oddly enough only 8 goals. He has not been, by New York standards, a playoff goal scorer.
Face-off control by the Rangers. Nielsen off the skate of Rattel inside the Flyer line. Knocked right back out again by Dave Schultz. Jimmy Nielsen right on the stick of Schultz. Schultz back across the New York line. Winds up and fires, but it's blocked by Sealing. And a good defensive move by the New York defenseman. Then intercepted by Rattel. Across the Flyer line. On the right wing, Gilbert spun around, and Jimmy Watson's going to be going out. The delayed call finally Chris touches, and it's going to be, I believe, holding on Jimmy Watson. And again, with 12:49 left in the third period, the score is tied at 3-3.
Back here, Jimmy Watson picks up a holding penalty at the unlucky number of 7:11 of the third period, and the Rangers already pressing. It gives them a power play for the Flyers. Gives them their 10th penalty of the game of 14 called by Brian Lewis.
Face off in the circle to the left of Perron. Power play drive by Russo, deflected wide by one of the Flyers up front. I think it was Clark. Clark's drive knocked down by Lonsbury and cleared the length of the ice. Well, not quite the length. Back into the New York zone as Russo feeds up to Tkachuk. Now it's Russo starting out of his own zone. Russo through center ice. Dumps it to the Flyers near corner to our left. Goes behind the net. Perron puts it right on the stick of Russo. Lines up and fires. Blocked in front by Ashby. As Perron made the instinctive move, he's still on both knees, getting up slowly. Now it's Russo back for the Rangers. Puck stopped at the Flyer line. Clark takes a flick at it. Now it's Vickers on the left wing, dumping it to the right wing corner. Karam taken off the boards by Dupont, and he dumps it the length of the ice, forces Giacomo to come out and make a routine save. Again, it's Russo, sparking the power play attack, gets by McLeish. Now to Rattel. Russo. Rattel, centering pass, intercepted. Gary Dornhofer looks and lofts a high shot that goes in the rampway across the way between the two benches.
Well, you've got two pros there. Perron was pointing to center ice, saying a deflection, and Rousseau was pointing back to the circle. Esposito, Savard have scored in the second period for Boston, and Makita, I believe, was the one for Chicago. 4-2, Boston at the end of two. Magnuson make that. All right, 55 seconds remaining on Van Im's penalty. 11:44 in the third period. We're tied at 3.
Again, it's in the circle to the left of Perron. Jean Rattel against Rick McLeish. Puck loose in the slot. Look out. Coming up with a loose puck is Dornhofer. Comes to center. Moves it ahead for McLeish. He stopped at the New York line by Russo. Park takes a Dornhofer check and rolls across the way. McLeish trying to dig it loose. Upends Rattel. Comes up with a puck. He's bumped hard by Brad Park. Forced to cough up the puck, and Gilbert winds up out of his own zone. He fires it off the right wing boards, comes right in front of Perron, skated behind the net as Ashby is double teamed. Ashby trying to get loose. Dupont moves in. Gilbert can't get the puck. Loose out front. Shot. Great save. Perron score. And the Rangers have taken a 4-3 lead in a scramble in front of the Flyer net.
I don't know who scored that goal, but it was just inevitable the way the Rangers have been playing in this third period. They kept swarming and pressing. At that time, Ashby appeared to have the puck behind his net, but the Rangers sent two men in. They double-teamed him. Dupont tried to come in and control, but in came that little Gilbert, who's been a spark tonight, to steal it away, shoot it in front. There are a couple of shots, and finally a scramble and a mass of players that trickled through. And for the first time in this series, the Rangers lead it by the score of 4-3, and they've scored 3 in a row after trailing 3-1. Again, it was Gilbert after Dupont was held off, or Ashby, by Irvin, where Gilbert came out, threw it right out in front. An attempt at a block. In it came off Brad Parker was right there. He shot. Perron appeared to make the save. It rolled beneath him. I don't think he knew where it was, and then it trickled and was lifted in perhaps again by Brad Park, and it was off Dupont's stick. So Park should get the goal at 8:56. And it would be a power play goal.
Brad Park does get the goal as we're back to live action again. Puck in the New York zone. Rod Sealing. Checked by Bill Flett. Now it's Flett battling for it across the way with Stemkowski. Harris sends Bruce McGregor away. One man back is Tom Bladen. McGregor shoots. Great save. As Bladen upset McGregor enough so he couldn't get a shot on goal. As deadly as Bruce McGregor is, he still managed to get a blistering shot away, and it took a great save by Perron to kick it loose.
Stanley Cup playoff books are here, and the Stanley Cup record book, well, it's hot. Crammed full of records. It's $1.50 if you come to the Spectrum, or $1.50 plus 50 cents for mail if you write to the Flyers novelty department. That's Park. His third goal of this playoff year, his second against the Flyers from Gilbert and Irving. At 8:53, a power play goal, and the Flyers now have been burned twice in their last two penalties.
Quick whistle off the face-off. We'll try it once more, and the Flyers have been in disarray throughout this entire third period as the Rangers have really carried the attack to them. The Flyers led at 1.31. The Rangers have come back with 3 unanswered goals. Buddy Clark trying to come up the right wing. Gets it ahead for Bill Barber. Back to Clark. He's taken down the hard check. A light check by Harris. Much the same type of check that he threw in Esposito last year. That put him out of action. Barber battles in the far corner with Sealing for it. Sealing moves it ahead for Harris. He's bumped hard by Joe Watson in return. And now here comes McGregor once more. Overskates the loose puck and Joe Watson. And we've got a penalty coming up again against the Flyers as Brian Lewis is calling them all against the Flyers with 10:03 to go in the third period. It's 4-3 New York.
Back here at the Garden, Joe Watson picks up a second penalty of the game. This one for slashing against Bruce McGregor as Bruce went after Blayton on a one-on-one again. Watson took a good whack at him right outside the blue line, and that's what Brian Lewis called. So the Rangers, who scored just moments ago at 8:53, have another opportunity with a power play. They lead 4-3.
Rattel this time flanked by Irvin and Gilbert. Of course, Hadfield injured late in the second period. The draw back to Park across to Russo. Gilbert takes a drive, glove save as that puck was aimed over the net. Perrant speared it and tied it up for face-off again in that same circle to his left. 4-3 New York with 9:57 left here in the third period of play.
Again, it was the drive from the point. Perrant reaching out wide to make sure he controlled the puck.
Back to live action again. It's Rod Gilbert. Back to the right point. Rousseau. The drive. It's wide of the Flyer net. Karam to the near boards as Flett tries to move it ahead for Crisp. Broken up by Park. Here comes Ted Irvin. Across to Gilbert. Can't get a shot away. And Gilbert's going to be going out for hooking. The first penalty called against New York since back at the 10:55 mark of the second period of play.
That's the Flyers' opportunity now to break off that power play that just served 25 seconds with Joe Watson off, so Gilbert picks up his first penalty of this set as Gilbert took down Crisp on the hook just as Terry tried to break along the near side and pick up a loose puck. The time of the penalty is 10:22, so they'll play 5 aside for 1:35, and then the Flyers will have a little short power play, a mini power play of less than a half minute. There have been 15 penalties now called in the game, 10 against the Flyers. Make that 11 against the Flyers and 5 against the Rangers of 16 by Brian Lewis.
Face-off outside the Flyers' blue line as they go with McLeish and Lonsbury, Barry Ashby, and Moose Dupont. New York counters with Walter Tkachuk and Bill Fairbairn, Dale Rolfe, and Brad Park. Here's Tkachuk across the line, blocked off. Dupont tries to clear, gets another chance at it, but the pass is behind McLeish, controlled at center by Park. Crosses to the near side for Dale Rolfe. Rolfe to Tkachuk along the left wing boards. Back to Rolfe. Closing. Glove save. And Perrant steers it off for Lonsbury. Puts it right on the stick of Park. Park centering pass intercepted by Lonsbury. Lonsbury trying to move it to center ice. Does. But it's controlled by New York. Rolfe across to Fairbairn. Fairbairn takes a light bump by Lonsbury. Trying to tie him up. Finally does. Right in front of the Ranger bench door. And I believe Fairbairn had thoughts about trying to mix something up, as did Dupont.
Flyers, after a nip and tuck second period with both teams playing cautious hockey, took a 3-1 lead. Barber a power play goal with Ralph off. And that seemed to sting the Rangers. 2 minutes later, they got the power play goal back on one of their own by Vickers. 4 minutes later, a score by Gilbert, and a power play goal here at 8:53 of the third period. Make that a power play goal by Park to make it 4-3, their first lead of the series and of the night, of course.
On the face-off, New York controls. Both teams playing one man short. Gilbert will be back in a minute 17, but Joe Watson will be back in 50 seconds. Again, it's tied up across the way, again in front of the New York Ranger bench. Jimmy Watson, along with Bill Fairbairn. So the face-off will be just outside the Ranger blue line on the Flyers' left wing.
Horace Kendrichuk has not made an appearance back on the ice after being shaken up. He's seated over at the bench directly next to Barry Ashby to his left. And it may be that Fred Shuro would be concerned enough about his shaky legs and that haziness, if any exists, to send him back in there right now. So he'll go with Crisp, McLeish, and Clark the rest of the way. But the Flyers have to come to the Rangers. They need a goal. In fact, they need 2. As it cannot end in a tie. So the Flyers now, as we reverse our stats, know that the minimum they could do is they've got to shut out the Rangers the rest of the way and score 2 themselves to win this one.
Face-off intercepted. A shot by Dornhofer deflected wide behind the net. Loose in front, but cleared away by Bruce McGregor. McGregor, the veteran, comes to center ice. Lead pass to Stemkowski. Centering pass. McGregor couldn't get his stick down as he was tied up. And now it's Terry Crisp with Gary Dornhofer. The low man back is Sailing. Dornhofer back to Jimmy Watson. The drive blocked in front by Rod Sailing, and back comes Stemkowski. Stemkowski on the right wing. Going to try and do it alone. Pulls up short. Waits for a man to pass to. Drives on Perron. Routine stick save. Terry Crisp starts out. Lead pass to Dornhofer on the right wing. Dorney comes through center. Winds up at the line. Blocked off by Nielsen. And picking up the loose puck is Stemkowski. Stemkowski, lead pass too far for McGregor to reach. Crisp crosses to Bladen along the near side at center ice. Bladen cuts around Nielsen. Ahead for Clark. Loses control. And with the Flyers enjoying the power play for the next 11 seconds, the Rangers ice the puck. Dupont starts from his own end. Up to Barber at center ice. Barber bounces one to the New York corner. Rebound out of the net is Giacomin. Barber has it, looking for an open man to pass to. Behind the net for Clark. Clark kicks the puck loose. Trying to come out of that far corner. Back to Dupont. Dupont puts it back in the corner for Flett. Flett to Clark. The shot hits the backboard. Rebounds to the near side. Barber trying to tie it up, and it's played to center ice by Gilbert. As both teams are back full. Here comes Dupont. Deep in the right wing corner. Centering pass. Goes right through the goal mouth, and here comes Fairman back for New York. Fairman up the right wing as Barber chases him. Barber leans on him, and Fairman spins away from the check, but the puck is tied up in the far corner for a faceoff.
6:59 remaining in regulation play, and we'll look back perhaps at the end of the game on that breakaway with Dornhofer and just one man back. And Dornhofer did not take the shot, and his pass, which appeared to be behind McLeish, may or may not have been intentionally a drop pass to Jimmy Watson, who waited a bit too long for an opening and fired into, I believe, Rod Sealing's pad or Jimmy Nielsen. And so the Flyers, who need a goal, and caught the Flyers up ice, or the Rangers up ice, and had them in an error 2-1, couldn't get the shot on Giacomin. Well, really, Don, for the most part of the evening, after the early surge in the first 10 minutes, has been left pretty well shot-free, as the attack has been on Perron.
Face off in the Flyer end. Schultz leads Selesky too far at center ice, controlled by Dale Rolfe. Rolfe sends it ahead for Ted Irvin. Now here's Gilbert across the line, top of the slot, the drive, and he scores. It's 5-3 New York, and the Flyers have cut themselves a mighty deep hole now with only 6:46 left in regulation time.
Well, the Rangers have come charging. They trailed 2-0 and 3-1, and now they lead by a pair. As Gilbert really let that one go, and he's been to me the spark, Don, since the second period, as he has so often against the Flyers, as he made that rush right through 2 checkers, had one man back, and from about 40 feet, really ripped one to the short side about ankle high, and it ripped the nets, and Gilbert gets his first of the night, although really it was his second, because he scored the goal that brought the Rangers to a 3-3 score. Gilbert, and the time of the goal is 13:14. Irvin and Ralph will get the assists on Gilbert's goal. He should have 2 tonight, along with an assist, but he has 2 assists now and a goal. Irving and Ralph. Now they're starting to yell Eddie again, or are they yelling Bernie to go after Perron? Irving and Ralph, and it's 5-3 Rangers.
Face off at center ice. Tkachuk against McLeish. New York controls. McLeish almost broke up Park. Tkachuk gets it back again off the right wing boards for Fairbairn. Gets by Lonsbury. Lonsbury breaks him up. Raises the stick. Centering pass. A backhander by Vickers is just wide as the Flyers defense is all of a sudden becoming a bit porous. McLeish touches the puck, and offside is waved off as it's tapped back to center ice by the Rangers. Joe Watson retreats inside of his own zone, trying to shake Tkachuk. Ashby across for Lonsbury on the left wing. Lonsbury, right wing pass Dornhofer, trying to get by Steve Vickers, does, but loses the puck. Rolfe sends it up to Vickers. Vickers up to Harris, one-on-one, Joe Watson back. Harris shot is wide. Rebound steered to the far corner, and now we've got Steve Vickers going at someone, and there's a third man in situation. It's Dornhofer. And Russ Lansbury, I'm sure, will be ejected from the game as a third man in.
Now Ron Harris is over there getting a hold of Dornhofer. Now Ashby separates him. Now Joe Watson is getting in with Dale Rolfe, who towers over him by a good head. And Ranger fans now feel that they've got this game in the bag, 5-3 with 5:57 left. Might add a little icing of the cake with some intimidation and some battle. Flyers appeared to shake the Rangers, leading after the midway point of the game 3-1, but then Vickers, Hatfield, Clark, and Gilbert, two of them on the power play, have broken it open and given the Rangers a 2-goal lead. Now we're going to have some more penalties, I'm sure, and it probably will be Vickers and Dornhofer and then perhaps Lansbury on the third minute. 5:57 left in the third period. 5-3 Rangers. Back here at Madison Square Garden, we had the first all-out go, as Lansbury has left, and he will be the third man in. So the Flyers lose Dornhofer for at least 5, or pretty much the remainder of the game, and Lansbury for the remainder of the game. So it means that they've lost 2/3 of their big line for whatever challenge they can make in this final 6 minutes against the Rangers, who have a 2-goal lead. Well, if the Rangers win this one, Don, it assures Game 5 back at the Spectrum next Tuesday evening. We want to repeat Game 4 here Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock with WPEN AM and FM carrying the pregame show beginning at 1:55. Vickers and Dornhofer will each get 5 minutes for fighting. And Lansbury, the third man in on the game misconduct. 14:03 the time of the penalties. So strategically those penalties hurt because they again pretty well denude the Rick McLeish of his normal wing players on this last rush down. Well, now they're yelling they want Schultz. And Schultz has come on. Fred Shero is obliging.
And who knows, Gene, Dave Schultz may be obliging as well.
You can't accuse the Ranger fans of being front runners. They waited till they were 2 goals ahead before they got vociferous.
Face off in the Flyer zone. A drive by Nielsen is wide, hits the backboard. Gilbert racked up by Schultz. Irvin flips a backhander to the Flyers corner. Behind the net, Dupont winds it around to the near side. As the Flyers start out, it's Tom Bladen. Bladen gets it across to McLeish. McLeish tied up by Rattel. Bladen ahead for Schultz. Offside the call by linesman Ron Finn as Schultz brought the puck in behind him. Face-off will be a neutralized.
Don, just your observation of a comment. I think Rod Gilbert has been the spark, despite some great play by the Tkachuk line, and Rattel has really been weaving, and they played their positions well. They forechecked to a fairly well, and really kept the Flyers away from Jackman through the second half of the game. But I think if you had to pinpoint a guy, my guy would be Gilbert right now.
Well, right now it's Gilbert and Schultz that are joining right in front of the New York bench, and apparently Dave Schultz agrees with you, Gene, because he realizes that if he can take Gilbert off, maybe he could minimize the effect of that gag line, which has been the spark plug for New York tonight.
Francis is instigating by putting out Ron Harris against Schultz. Something's got to go. Look at them. They're looking at one another, and the linesman is right there trying to keep them separated. They're just dropping. Here we go. They've just dropped their sticks, and nothing has happened, and already Brian Lewis has waved them to the penalty box, and I think that's right. I think it's right, and Gilbert just reached up from the players' bench and whacked Schultz with a stick.
Well, Gilbert has come on the ice, as a matter of fact. I don't know why they stopped play, Gene, because nothing was happening. Play should have been allowed to continue. There was no reason to stop play.
Let's see. Now we've got Brian Lewis going after Dupont, who just took his helmet off. He wants a piece of Schultz. And the only thing I regret here, Don, is the Flyers getting undisciplined. There's still plenty of time in this game to get 2 goals, but not if they lose too many men into the penalty box and on game misconducts. And Dupont is being separated by Brian Lewis. He's beckoning to Harris, and Harris is being held off by Ron Finn and Matt Pavlich, and he's beckoning Dupont. And so Lewis, I think, has told Dupont to get to the bench, and he's told Schultz to get off the ice to the penalty box, and Harris the same. I don't know what you give him, game. You can't call it roughing. The only thing I could sue is maybe give him misconduct penalties for instigation. They've already picked up 19 minutes early in the first period for roughing, charging, fighting, and misconduct against Clark.
I don't think there is a role in the rule book under instigation, Gene. I don't know what.
Inciting might be the call.
Inciting to what? Nothing happened.
Up. He's giving a clock now on Schultz, but he's not doing a thing to Harris. Now that's the Flyers' aggravation, Don, that we want to repeat. He has looked their beans at Harris, who hasn't left the ice or done anything, but he's put a clock on Schultz, he's warned Schultz, and Harris is still standing there under the same guise as Schultz did to begin this whole penalty.
And the rule book clearly states the home team player must go to the box immediately. Harris hasn't moved from the spot. He hasn't been told to go to the box, but Schultz has been handcuffed. And now Bernie Perrant is being pelted with all sorts of debris from behind his own bench as he whacks the glass.
And now New York's finest are quickly going up behind the glass. Bernie's taking on all of New York. Go get him, Bernie.
Thus far, Gene, I haven't seen one uniformed policeman move toward that area. Not one.
Well, Schultz is done for the night. They're taking him, so it must be a game misconduct for inciting or whatever have you, and also Ron Harris. But Harris still hasn't moved, and Brian Lewis hasn't wiggled at him, hasn't given him the clock, hasn't pointed at him. Well, 5:32 remaining in the third period, and it's 5-3 Rangers. For something, but Schultz is already gone. And way to go, Brian Lewis.
He blew another one. How about Gilbert coming off the bench? Nothing assessed him. That's in the book too, Brian Lewis.
Well, right now the discussion is being made out there. We've got Dupont now being escorted over to the penalty box, so it looks like Dupont's gone too. And he's circling away from linesman Ron Finn, who's telling him, get somewhere. And is Dupont gone for the night or to the penalty box? Looks like he's gone for the night, too. Well, that's not bad. Ron Harris came out. They were looking for a fight, the two of them. The Flyers get 2 guys gone for the night, and Harris goes to the box.
Well, it's consistent at least, Gene. Brian Lewis has been calling them one way most of the night anyway, so why should he change now? You know, it's strange that the best referee, or one of the best at least, in the National Hockey League that we've seen this year, Andy Van Helleman, was not allowed to even work the Stanley Cup playoffs. We talked with Bill Chadwick, himself a former referee in the NHL and a member of the Hall of Fame, and he echoes our sentiments to the letter. One of the best officials that we've seen all year long. So he's a rookie, but he works the game and he takes charge, and he's consistent both ways.
Of course, I'm surprised also that after this is the Flyers' 7th game of Stanley Cup action, and they've yet to see Art Skov, who's supposed to be number 1. Now they're yelling, "We want blood." They were a pretty non-committal crowd, Don, when it was 3-1. Here we pick up the penalties.
To number 8, Dave Schultz, for delay in the game, 2 minutes, and a 10-minute misconduct penalty.
Schultz for delay and a misconduct.
Number 6, Andre Dupont, for roughing 2 minutes and a 10-minute misconduct penalty. Rangers penalty to number 3, Ron Harris. For delaying the game 2 minutes.
Incredible.
I don't believe it. It's a joke. It's a joke.
That's a bad call. Well, Harris gets 2 minutes for delay of the game, and if it wasn't for, really, I don't know, maybe we're twisted, Don, that Schultz was out there, and Emil Francis obviously set up the situation by putting Harris out there to delay. He sent him out there to go, and it winds up the Flyers have 2 men in the box, plus 2 misconducts, and the Rangers have 1 man in the box. So the Flyers have to play two of the last 5 minutes and 32 seconds, 4 skaters to 3. Emil Francis is smiling now.
Well, it's a game of one-upmanship, and he's won this game. And his club may win the game on the ice, but I'll tell you, I've seen some ludicrous officiating, but this has to take the cake. It's really a joke.
Well, Moose and Schultz each received 2 for delay and a misconduct, and Harris received 2 for delay. Well, let's see how that makes it for the night. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 17 to 7 in the penalties.
Well, as I said earlier, Gene, it's consistent with Brian Lewis's officiating. All set to go with a face-off just outside the New York blue line. McLeish against Rattel. Puck skids back into the Flyers' right wing corner in the Rangers zone. Now it's Rod Gilbert moving the puck ahead. Picks it up himself as he goes around Brad Park. Across the line, drives again. It's wide to the right side. Rattel slips and falls. McLeish picks up the loose puck on the left wing, comes to center. Loses control of the puck and is broken up by Brad Park. And now Park and McLeish go at it. This is becoming a ridiculous situation.
Now let's see. He's pointed to somebody. And Park and McLeish just bumped, and Park went after him and really clipped him with a good right. I'm sure McLeish may get a game misconduct for antagonizing an all-star defenseman. Let's see what happens out of all of this. Watch out, Rick. You may get 2 for going. Oh, he got him good. Down goes Park. That's going to cost Rick some more. You just don't antagonize an all-star defenseman and then go after him. This game has really deteriorated now, Don. Now we've got McLeish. And now, again, Brian Lewis hasn't said it. Now finally he's gone over to say something to Park. But he never whistled at Harris during that whole thing with Dupont and Schultz. And the first guy went after is McLeish. And as you say, Don, the book says the home guy, get in there. And Park is continuing the bull. And Harris, Brian Lewis still hasn't gone to him and pulled the clock or shaken a finger at him. But we're going to have more penalties. This really should set up a ding-dong game Sunday, Don.
Well, the Rangers are very brave in front of their own home fans, but they were pussycats in Philadelphia. And obviously, with the Rangers ahead 5-3, if the Flyers don't pull this one out, that assures a return to the Spectrum. I want to see how brave they are there.
I'll tell you, Don, what this really does for the Flyers, they've lost Lonsberry in a game misconduct. They've lost Schultz on a misconduct. They've lost Dupont in a misconduct. They've got Dornhofer in for the rest of the game on a fight. And they've got Kindrachuk and Kelly serving minor penalties for Dupont and Schultz. And now McLeish will be off. So the Flyers will have 7 men who are unable to really participate in the remainder of the game. So it means they've got 10. They've lost Schultz a forward, Lonsberry a forward, Dornhofer a forward, Kelly a forward, McLeish a forward, and Kindrachuk a forward. And now the police are really ensconced around the New York Flyers players bench down there in order to protect both the fans and the Flyers the fans. And Dornhofer's leaning over, way over the penalty box. He's trying to yell at somebody. And I think he's trying to yell at the Rangers in their penalty box. That would be Harris and Park. Boy, is this ever going to be a game Sunday, Don?
Gene, I recall, and let's pick up the penalties.
For high swinging 2 minutes and for fighting 5 minutes.
Incredible.
To number 2, Brad Park, for high sticking 2 minutes and for fighting 5 minutes.
Well, rough setting. 2 and 5 for both McLeish and Park.
Well, they're done for the night.
Well, at least, unless the Flyers get red hot and come back and tie this game, they would be done for a total of 7 minutes. Back to live action again as the Rangers control in their own zone. It's Rod Sealing. Sealing starts out. He's got Nielsen alongside of him to his left. Feeds to Nielsen. Up to Rattel. Rattel leveled by a Van Impe check, and he's going up. Oh, boy.
Well, the Flyers can't lose any more men. So Van Impe's penalty won't be able to start until somebody comes back on ice. But all they do now, they have 8 men who are unavailable for play. 8 men unavailable. So we look on the bench, and the Flyers have 2, 4, 6, 7 substitutes. This game is really deteriorated right now, and I can't think of a better word. It's now a street brawl. And you can't say much more about it than just that.
I can remember a situation, Gene, between the Bruins and the Rangers here in New York back in 1970, in the first game here in New York, when Ed Giacomin actually came out of his net and told Derek Sanderson that we've been paid to get you, so watch out. And in the very next face-off, the whole Ranger team on the ice piled on Sanderson in the corner. And if there was a rule against inciting, it should have been called then, but Giacomin got off scot-free. Back to action as Sealing feeds up to Jim Nielsen in his own zone, retreats in front of his own net, feeds back to Sealing again. Of course, Van Impe's penalty won't start until the first man comes out of the Flyer box. Nielsen drops back to Stemkowski. The drive stopped by Perron and cleared to center ice. All the way back to the New York zone as Sealing was in no particular hurry to catch up with it, as his club leads the Flyers 5-3. Stemkowski starts out the right side. 4 skaters to 3. Stemkowski. McGregor gets by Watson. Back to Stemmer. Puck loose. McGregor gets a shot away. Puts it back to Sealing. Sealing to the left point. Nielsen winds up. Fires. Kick save. Another shot. Stopped by Perron off the stick of McGregor. Nielsen's going to get it back again. To the right point, Sealing. His shot deflected wide by the Flyers, and Bill Barber clears to center ice. Now it's Nielsen back for the Rangers. Into McGregor. Spun down by Ashby, who could have been called right there. Clark digs for the puck, but Sealing is there first. Clark hits the ice hard and slides into the far boards. Here comes Dale Rolfe. Just dumps it into the zone as Jimmy Watson goes to the corner. McGregor tied up by Clark. Now it's Kelly retreating into his own zone. Kelly gets some running room and heads for center ice. Kelly gets by one man, Rolfe. Upended and spun around by Ron Harris, and again loses that glove hand. Kelly slow to get up, but here comes Bill Fairbairn on the right wing. Fairbairn blocked out by Jimmy Watson. And he dumps it the length of the ice. And it's going to be icing against the Flyers, and with 3 minutes even up left in third period play, right now we're going to pause for station identification on the Flyers
TV 29, WTAF TV, Philadelphia.
Back here as Kelly tried to get around Harris, he just slid that hip over and caught Bobby in the left leg and spun him around, and he fell heavily and then went into the boards, and he left the ice. And he didn't want to show it, but he was hurt. He's in pain right now, that left leg. And so we won't see Kelly the rest of that. So the Flyers are down to 5 substitutes, and I've never seen this in recent years.
At center ice, it's Harris across to Rolfe. Both teams, the Rangers still have the one-man edge as they're at full strength. Jimmy Watson behind his own net. Watson starts out, feeds up to Clark. Clark up to Selesky. Selesky fires from outside. Glove save as Giacomin looks real cool now that his club has built him a 2-goal lead. Selesky bumps Harris lightly as the puck goes the length of the ice, and it's going to be icing as Jimmy Watson touches up. Face-off in the New York zone with 2:28 left in regulation time.
56 seconds remaining on the penalty to Ed Van Impe. 2:28, as Don said, and the Rangers have a 2-goal lead in the power play. Don't forget, For those of you joining us and with us on television, stay tuned for the post-game Tasty Cake show. And Ron Harris now is back on after serving his 2-minute delay of the game penalty. Flyers have picked up 19 penalties, the Rangers 9. And so the Rangers have gotten tit for tat after what they thought was an unfair advantage on Tuesday night when they were out-penaltied 15 to them and 12 for the Flyers.
Well, that was pretty even, but 19 to 9 I would call anything but consistent, unless you want to call consistently bad. Not that the Flyers didn't earn most of those penalties, but New York, good Lord, they've been committing the same type of infractions, but not being called for it. Stemkowski can't clear out, now skates it out to center ice. Wing to wing for McGregor, broken up by Bladen, now picked up by Bill Flett. Flett drives from the line, blocked out by Nielsen, just slides in wide of the New York net. Giacomin shoves it back in the corner again. Crisp gets it to Flett. Flett shot wide, a weak one. Rebound taken by Jimmy Nielsen. Lead pass off the stick of Stemkowski to center ice. Back comes Flett. He's stopped at the line by Nielsen. Bladen across to Jimmy Watson. Watson back to Crisp. He has trouble with it. He's broken up by Stemkowski. Down to 1:52 left in regulation time. Jimmy Watson off the leg of Ron Finn goes into the New York zone, but play is stopped by Brian Lewis. Face-off will be inside the Ranger blue line across the way.
12 seconds and Van Impe will be out. And the Flyers will be able to skate at full strength for the first time in a long time. As one of the determining factors, the Rangers have owned the second half of the game. There's no question about that. After the Flyers scored 11:33, it's been all Rangers since then. They've outscored the Flyers 4-0. And the shots on goal are going to be awfully one-sided right now, as it was 23-11 coming into this period, and the margin has been 2 or 3-1 for the Rangers here. Now, Perron has gone over. He's not going to leave the ice yet, but he's going over to talk with Fred Shearer as to just when should he break out and go to the bench if the Flyers control the draw. But the Flyers do not have Lonsbury. They do not have Kindrachuk. They do not have McLeish, Dupont, Schultz. Kelly is hurt, so they've got not many on the bench.
Here comes Ted Irvin across the Flyer line. One-on-one against Bladen. Backhander is wide. Rebound comes to the near boards. Kept in by Dale Rolfe. Picked up now by Stemkowski. Stemkowski's got shooting room. Tied up and taken down by Bobby Clark. Now it's Jimmy Watson around to Van Impe. It's a wonder Brian Lewis didn't whistle a hooking call on Clark right there. Dale Rolfe feeds up for Stemkowski. Hops over his stick. Bladen taps it across for Joe Watson. Up to Clark at center. Clark across the red line as Perron heads for the bench. Centering pass hits the side of the net. Clark in there, loose puck in front. Flett trying to keep it in, but it's cleared out to center ice. Stemkowski, who has 2 empty net goals already, looks for Fährmann, and offside is the call. I thought Stemkowski might try to go for number 3.
He had 2 a week ago Sunday against the Rangers, or against Montreal. One making it, giving the Rangers a 2-goal lead, and the second one a 3-goal lead. In that 5-2 win over or Thursday night, actually, Don. I'm sorry. A week ago tonight, here in that clinching game, and he made 2 in the last minute to make it a 5-2 series clinching win over Canadiens. 5-3 here, and again, Gilbert has been the spark. He should have 2 goals, but they only give him credit for 1. They gave Hatfield the credit for another. But he gets on the blank a goal and 2 assists. But he should have it the other way around, and he turned this game around with his hustle and goal set up and his 2 scores.
Okay, the Flyer net's still wide open. Ron Harris back on for New York, playing a defensive position along with Jim Nielsen. It's going to be Bobby Clark against Walter Tkachuk, controlled by the Flyers. Bladen across to the far side to Jimmy Watson, up to Bobby Clark. Return pass eludes Watson. Fährmann controls. He's boxed in, and here comes Bill Barber. He's hooked from behind by Tkachuk. Play is allowed to continue. Puck kept in by Jimmy Watson. Watson gets it to the corner for Bill Flett. Out to Dornoff for the drive as he's back on the ice. Cleared. Back to the Flyers zone. And Vickers is going to take dead aim at that open net. Just missed the far post. Bill Barber has it. Sends it to center ice for Bill Flett. He can't touch it. Loose puck picked up by Clark. Clark back passes to Dornoff for closing. The drive blocked by Nielsen. And he moved it ahead to a teammate, and a good call by Brian Lewis there as he spotted Nielsen gloving it ahead to Steve Vickers and made the call with a face-off upcoming in the New York zone with 7 seconds to go.
Well, this is the only game in which the Flyers have not scored in all 3 periods. They've scored in the first 8 against Jackman, but they have not in this period, and the Rangers have. They broke a 3-3 tie and lead at 5-3, so it's all over. The Rangers are going to win this one with 7 seconds left, so there will be a Game 5 next Tuesday night at the Spectrum.
And as Gene said, this sets up what should be a real humdinger here Sunday afternoon with these same 2 clubs in Game 4. Clark draws it back to Bladen. Across to Jimmy Watson. Through a screen, it hit the backboard. Bladen rushes to keep it in as the buzzer sounds to end the game, and the Rangers have finally gotten on the board game-wise as they win Game 3 here tonight. The Flyers still lead in the series, 2-1. The final score, the Rangers 5, the Flyers 3. We'll be back with a wrap-up after these words.